not acknowledging the game that took place on Memorial Day.
Never happened.
That didn't happen for the Cardinals. We're basically pretending as if this show took place on Monday, which would have been a celebration of your St. Louis Cardinals coming off of one hell of a weekend of baseball against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Arizona is not a perfect team. Their pitching, for the most part, this year has not come around the way that anybody anticipated that it would. T-Bone still loves them. They have his heart, but they have not performed as expected. And yet I came away so incredibly impressed by the way the Cardinals found multiple different styles of wins over the weekend. Whether that was winning with defense, winning with timely hitting, winning with pitching. The starting pitching was really good all weekend long. Just really impressive performances. All of them kind of felt like last year when the Cardinals were going through that winning stretch where it's like, man, these are all nail-biter victories. This is not what it was earlier in the season where the Cardinals were blowing everybody out. No, I think they've won, it's like 7 of their last 10 one-run games is what this team is at right now. And this weekend, all of them were one-run games. It was impressive, man. And so I come in today, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat, as always, is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. I come in today, Cardinals are 30-24. Prior to yesterday, it was the first time they had reached the 7 games above 500 threshold since late 2022 and August of 2022. Feeling pretty damn good about your St. Louis Cardinals, Alex. I'm enjoying watching this team. What was your biggest takeaway from the weekend?
That's just it. I mean, like, it's fun to watch this team right now, which I have not been able to say for a long time. Honestly, my biggest takeaway is something you guys said on the Redbird Report. Shout out to you two. But you guys talked about how the Cardinals are never out of it. That's really where this is right now. They trailed in every one of those games against the Diamondbacks at Busch Stadium. And they, every single time, now a couple of them they were only down by a run,
sure,
but every single time that they were down, I'm like, this team's not going to lose. They're not done. There's still an opportunity for them to come back. Specifically was that Saturday game where it was 1-1 all the way up until the 8th inning, and then they score 4, and I'm like, oh, this game's over. And then here comes the Cardinals. They find ways to always push themselves back into baseball games. Even yesterday when they lost to Baltimore, I know we said we weren't referencing it, but that game still felt like they were going to find a way to come back and win that baseball game.
When Pages hit that home run, I was like, all right, maybe they'll find a way to get back into this thing. Because we had seen them down 4-1, was it? Against Tarek Skubal last week.
Mm-hmm.
Found a way to win that one yesterday. It's not like you're going up against the same level of arm as you were with Tarek Skubal. So, hey, maybe they can find a way to do it again. They didn't. Bats fell short, struck out 10 times. Again, we're not referencing that game.
Yeah, it never happened.
They still found a way to at least be relatively competitive.
That's just where it is right now with this Cardinals team, and I think that weekend really showed it. Look, Arizona's not the sexiest team. They're not a team that's expected to win the World Series, but they are still a team that anybody that talks baseball always references the Arizona Diamondbacks for how good their offense is. They've got Zach Gallen at the top of that rotation, and the Cardinals found a way to not only beat them, win the series, but sweep them. So to me, the biggest takeaway is what it always has been. No matter the scenario, the Cardinals seem to always be in baseball games, which that is the recipe for a team that if you want to label it a team that can contend, fine. But anytime you're in a game and you're down and it feels like you've got the roster or you've got the pieces to pull you back into it, you're a dangerous team.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it was a complete game all weekend long for the Cardinals outside of the game we're ignoring on Monday. But you look at it, I mean, you mentioned they come back in those games. So they've got kind of that fight in them to stay in all of these ball games. The offense comes through with big hits when they're needed, especially from Jordan Walker in one of those games. Your starting pitching was excellent against one of the best offenses in baseball. So your rotation does its job. Bullpen was, some might say shaky. I would say it probably just tied into a couple of mishaps defensively. And then the defense, even though it had a couple of weird blips on the radar during the weekend, the defense as a whole was excellent against the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, they just played great baseball on all facets, right? They played off, they did well hitting, they did well pitching, and the defense was excellent. That's the recipe going to win you a lot of ball games. So that was a complete effort from the St. Louis Cardinals. I was very impressed by what they did against the Arizona Diamondbacks team because though they are not in the playoff picture, I still believe they're going to be a playoff team because they've got a great offense. They've got a staff that's got stuff that's just not playing up right now. And he took advantage of their weakness, right? Their weakness was, hey, can you get to their bullpen? Their bullpen has been bad all year. It's been one of the worst bullpens in baseball. And the Cardinals not only would get to the bullpen, they would take advantage of the bullpen when they came into the ball game.
I'm not trying to be Mr. Doomsday today, but if they don't make the playoffs, from what we've seen now, that's a disappointment, right?
I think it depends how you get there. Kind of like the Blues, right? Would it have been disappointing in the moment if the Blues didn't make it to the playoffs? Yes, because they put themselves in position to be able to do so. But it could still be a successful season to me because of all of the other factors. The Blues, again, if they missed the playoffs, disappointing. Yeah. However, I think it's a successful season because on opening night, the goal was get positive returns from the young players. And at that point in time, you felt good about Dylan Holloway, Zach Bolduc, Jimmy Snuggerud. There were steps taken by both Thomas and Kyrou. You added somebody to the core this year with Philip Broberg. Cam Fowler is not young, but he became a core member of this team, you hope, for the next 2 to 3 years probably. So I felt good about all of that. I feel like we never talk about Hofer, by the way, in those conversations. I'll add him in. So I would have felt good about their trajectory. And I think the same thing could still be true for the Cardinals as well. Even if they were to miss the playoffs, you could have a successful year with Ivan Herrera doing what he's done and Mason Wynn taking the next step, Victor Scott becoming a core member of the team, guys like Nolan Gorman, not so much, Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar becoming even better versions of themselves, and Liberator really establishing himself as a legitimate starter. So disappointing, yes.
But not
still
a failure.
Could be a success.
Yeah, and that's kind of why because we'd be talking about a pretty significant collapse from a team that has just found every recipe to win. But
I don't feel that way. I mean, right now, you're not in the playoffs. The Cardinals, as of today, would not be in the postseason.
Oh, we suck.
So we're not a good team.
You would consider that to be a collapse but when you're falling out of a spot that you never had.
But our tone is like there's no weakness on this team. In every single game, they find ways to win. And if all of a sudden they fall out of it and don't make...
To be clear, I don't feel that way. I don't think the Cardinals are without weaknesses. Do you guys?
No, I think they've got weaknesses.
I mean, I think they've got one weakness is starting pitching. I don't think it's not the same type of weaknesses as we've seen from the Cardinals in the last 3 years.
They don't have an Achilles heel the way they have in the past. Like previously, 2023, their defense was an atrocity that could not be overcome. Last year, you looked at it, and that the pitching overall was not great. And then at times, their offense just went into a sinkhole where they couldn't hit themselves out of a paper bag. It was bad. This year, I think you just have a lot of things that are pretty good. And I think there could be a point in time where pretty good isn't good enough to get you into the postseason, right? I do not think this team is capable, barring injury, of losing 90 games. That, to me, Alex, would be a collapse. But if this team wins 84 games and misses the playoffs, I don't think that's a collapse. I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's a failure by any stretch. I think that's very much in the range of outcomes, though. I think the overwhelming likelihood is they win somewhere between 84 and 90 games.
I guess
there's no guarantee that gets you in.
I guess it's because of how this offense has performed, because to me it feels like it's not a guarantee, because I know things obviously you're, like you mentioned, you're not sitting in a playoff spot, but you're talking about everyone around you keeping the same pace that you're keeping. And maybe that's the Cardinals have to keep this pace. It just feels like the offense has put them in a position where it does feel like 85 or more wins is kind of an expectation now.
I think so, but that doesn't there's no guarantee that gets you into the playoffs. And I would also add this. One of their big weaknesses is the lack of home runs. And it's starting to show up a little bit. I think you can feel that at times. I mean, yesterday you get the big hit by Pedro Baez, but it's just so hard to win consistently when you don't have an ability to touch seats, right? I mean, they have 49 home runs on the season, which is tied for 23rd in Major League Baseball. The teams below you, for context, are the Marlins, the Blue Jays, the Brewers, who have been horrible, the Rockies, who have been an atrocity, the White Sox, who have been horrific, Pirates, who have fired their manager, and the Royals, who I don't know how they're hanging around 500 right now. That offense is so bad. So, are they a good team? I think so. I think they're a pretty darn good team. My biggest question, though, is how do you overcome that lack of home run ball? And to me, I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop on the starting pitching.
You two have flipped roles, and I don't like it.
I know.
It's kind of weird.
I don't know if it's going to happen at this point.
BK's texting us over the weekend as, here are the holes. This is what we expected.
That's not true.
You're Dr. Doom is what you are.
He was ruining my vibe, I had a hot dog and a beer, and he's over here texting negative stuff.
Crap, I barely texted you this weekend. We basically have not spoken since last Friday at 2 o'clock, which was great.
Nice.
Very good. T-Bone and I were texting all weekend. We had a great time.
That's why we all came into the show pretty good mood today.
Well, maybe take a little hint.
Fair enough. Do you guys feel that way about the pitching? I saw signs of cracks over the weekend, and then certainly yesterday didn't look good for Fetty at all, and he's got some underlying numbers that are problematic. But do you feel that way about the pitching at all?
This is kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm riding the fence as we do on BK, because on one side of that fence...
Whoa, what?
We ride the fence here on BK.
And Ferrario.
No, BK does just ride the fence.
Riding BK on the fence.
Yeah, he just rides the fence. I feel like we ride BK on the fence here. That's what we do. On one side of this, I look at the offense.
I don't feel like I had any consent in this matter.
You don't need any. On one side of it, the offense is really good. And as I said earlier, they are never out of a baseball game, which is why I kind of feel like it as close to a guarantee as without being a guarantee that, like, you're a playoff team for how their offense plays. But then on the other side of that fence is certain pitchers on your rotation where it's Michaelis, Palante, and Fetty, where I just don't know how consistent that can stay from now until the end of the season. So I'm not doom and gloom like BK that says the pitching is going to be the reason they missed the playoffs, but I'm not super optimistic like they are going to be a playoff team. So I ride the fence like BK.
So typically I am one that would worry about this because I do believe you need swing and miss to win in baseball. But I think what you just said of, like, you could see in their range of outcomes is like an 82 to 85 win team.
Yeah.
I think this pitching staff can do that, right? And that's where, like, they're a good team. Are they a great team? No. And why are they not a great team? It probably is defined by the fact if they don't hit enough home runs, and they don't have swing and miss. But I think their pitching can be fine enough, especially with the defense behind them, to where I don't think their defense is going to slump. If they deal with injuries, then we'll have a different conversation. But I think this defense can help keep this pitching staff propped up to where I'm not necessarily waiting for the shoe to drop on all of them. I think there's going to be starts like you saw from Fetty where you just see it from the get-go and go, this is not going to be his day.
Do you know how many walks Fetty has this year?
Oh, it's a lot.
John Gant-esque?
Kind of.
Oh, is it that bad?
Oh, and he's Harry Houdini-ing his way out.
Kind of.
Oh, God.
And he doesn't have swing and miss stuff, which is really the John
Here comes
Gant of our
Dr. Doom.
times. No, I'm not overly concerned about it. I'm a little concerned about it. I think it's reasonable to say, like, hey, this is something that we should keep an eye on. Like, right now he has a 3.9 ERA. His fielding independent pitching is 4.9. Why? Because he's walking 4 batters per 9 innings. Like, every other inning that he appears in a game, he's walking somebody.
He just likes working out of the stretch.
Yeah. He pitches better with guys on the thread on the base.
Walking 10% of the batters that he faces. So, like, a guy that would have a 220 average would get on base 32% of the time because of Eric Fetty. And he has a 15% strikeout rate. So there are some mild concerns there. That is something that over time is really difficult to overcome. He's playing the BABIP game as well, where opposing hitters on the balls in play. It's about a 260 average. Normally that's roughly around a 300 average. Some of that's the defense. The defense has been excellent, but Fetty, Palante, those two do make me a little bit nervous. I'm not throwing Miles Michaelis into that category. I feel pretty good about Michaelis right now. Could change in a moment's notice.
Wait, what?
You're not going to throw the king of contact in there?
No, because he's not walking anybody. The walks are what make me nervous. If you're going to pitch to contact, you damn well better not give anybody free passes. And right now, Eric Fetty is giving a lot of them. And Palante gives more than you'd expect.
What did you do this weekend?
A lot of basement rinos.
Oh, okay. So your mind is a little...
A lot of caulking. A lot of that.
Were you riding the fence?
Nope, just caulking.
Just caulking?
Yeah,
cool.
A lot of caulking.
I know you did your Pilates. It's probably part of the reason
Thursday. Got
why you're feeling
one,
this way.
This week. Coming up on
your
Thursday
mind is mush right now. That's where we've gotten to this point.
You ain't lying. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat is available for you guys as always. NY is over there. iRock is over there. Jay is over there as well. Jay, a new addition to the YouTube chat today. We've got a lot of people active and happy. DJ Patty Cakes is there as always, opening things up today on the YouTube chat as well. Be a part of that at youtube.com/101ESPN We'd love to hear from you throughout the day. Questions and answers at 11:45. We'll ask Katie Wu why So Taguchi was a part of her 25-year team for the St. Louis Cardinals when she joins us at 12:15. Alex will explain why he has a new trade candidate at 11:30 for the Blues. But coming up next, I think it's time we talk about Nolan Arenado. He looks like his old self again, at least defensively, and I think he's made himself too valuable for this team to trade. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
It'll pop. Arenado foul ground. Onto the warning track. He's got it. Into the netting again. On the ground. Diving stop. Throw to first is dug out in time. What a play by Arenado to save a run. The Platinum Glover shows up yet again.
Incredible play, and then to stay in it and not want to come out until we get that last out. I mean, it speaks to who he is as a competitor. It's insane. Love having him, and what he continues to do is incredibly impressive. That's a big-time play and a big part of the game. These guys are really good, and they take a lot of pride in it. They put a lot of work before first pitch in order to kind of sustain what we're seeing defensively. We knew that if we were going to have success this year, we're going to have to take care of the baseball, and we've done that better than anybody.
That is what it sounded like on FanDuel Sports Midwest over the weekend. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Nolan Arenado has been nothing short of spectacular defensively on the season. Alex, he's tied for 7th in Major League Baseball and outs above average on the year. He's a +6, and if you look at it just among third basemen, the only one that is up there with him is Brian Hayes, a man that is like 10 years younger than Nolan Arenado. Arenado had some times over the last couple of seasons where things didn't look as good defensively. This year has been the opposite, and I viewed that play that he made over in the stands as one that really stood out to me to show just how committed he is to this team. That's not a play about ability. That's a play about willingness. And Nolan Arenado, when he's at his best, is always willing to make that play, and we've seen that from him this year. So a lot of the conversation will probably skew over the coming weeks, days, months ahead on Arenado's A, value at the trade deadline, and B, value as a hitter. Have you guys seen what he's hitting right now so far in the season? Have you looked at his average lately?
It ain't pretty.
He is batting .235.
That's why they moved him down.
He is slugging 375 on the year. That is a below league average hitter for the season. And I don't care. Like, it's just not all that important to me because of the players that they have around him in the lineup right now. He looks like a 6 or a 7 hole hitter at the plate. But that dude is so valuable right now defensively. It is similar to Brian Hayes in this regard, that you have to have him in the lineup every day. He is a key cog to what the Cardinals are doing right now.
He is, and he is what we talked a couple of years ago about, like worst case scenario with Mason Wynn. He's a guy that's going to give you gold glove defense, but he's probably going to be an everyday 9-hole hitter. It's what we kind of talked about Victor Scott last season, why I was like, look, just keep him up here because he's going to give you gold glove defense in center field. You've got spots on your roster as long as your entire roster is not filled with these guys, where offensively they're just not great, but defensively they're somebody that's filling holes for you that otherwise would really hurt you. And without Nolan Arenado, I'm not really sure what that third base is going to look like. Probably Brendan Donovan, which you're fine with, but does that mean Nolan Gorman's there? Or do the Cardinals, without Nolan Arenado, put Nolan Gorman there? Because they say, well, we wanted to figure out what this guy is. Right now, Nolan Arenado seems to be kind of what Braden Shen was, to where people were like, look, get rid of him. If the trade, somebody wants him, you can get rid of $6.5 million. He's not valuable to you. And I hesitated because Shen actually was pretty good for you at the time we were talking about it, because he played with two really good wingers that created an identity for you.
I'm trying to think of if there is a real Blues comparison, because Shen brings so much else to the table, like leadership.
And I don't know
I'm
if
not trying to diminish what Nolan Arenado is in that regard. I do think he has like a serious, who it might be is Booch. Where, Booch had the opportunity to potentially either be traded last year at the deadline, not this past season, but 2 years ago at the deadline, or they would basically make the decision to re-sign him right then and there. And I think that's kind of what the Cardinals would be doing. Like, if you don't trade him now or soon, he probably won't have enough value to anybody else to where you could get much of anything in return for him. So you're kind of making the decision, like, is he going to play this out here in St. Louis on his current contract, or are you going to move on from him? And I think, for me, Alex, I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on this. I think he's too valuable to what you're doing right now to move on from. I think he's made himself into a player that the Cardinals need in order to win. You saw yesterday when Gorman was in the lineup at third, a big part of what lost you that game was your defense. Your defense just wasn't good enough yesterday. And this team is built, more than anything else, despite the success that the lineup is having, they are built on pitching and defense. And Arenado is a fixture of that right now. And I guess that's where your Shin comparison really comes in, Alex, is when the Blues were at their best, they were a forechecking team. And Braden Shin is a huge part of that. Forecheck, get to the net. Well, what does Braden Shin do? All of those things. So Arenado's ability and willingness to be the guy that goes out there and does not take his lack of success offensively into the field, I think that's a really big thing for these young players in particular.
Yeah, I think it's a safety blanket for the players. Like, you got a lot of young players that are taking over the Cardinals but don't have to be looked at as the guys that are taking charge of this, although some of them might have. But you've got a Nolan Arenado there who kind of fixes everything. You know that in certain situations, you've got Nolan Arenado at third base to cover some warts, to make some plays for you defensively. And look, if we were talking about a guy who wasn't good defensively for you and still was hitting in the 4-hole, I think I'd be singing a different tune right now. But the Cardinals have even made their strides with that and said, nope, Nolan Arenado, we're not going to have you in the 4 spot. We'll move you down. Whether that was Arenado or the Cardinals that made that decision, they've done that now. Now we're talking about a guy who's hitting in the 6th spot. You've got your best hitters in front of him. He's providing you gold glove defense at third base. I just don't see the point of trading that away other than, well, he's got $20 million and you need to get that off the books.
So somebody on the text line brings this up, right? They're very upset at what I've been saying on Nolan Arenado being a valuable piece of the Cardinals. They said, but BK, you don't pay $20 million for defense alone. Great thought process. There's zero value in what Arenado is giving you compared to what he is being paid. Just no chance. There is little value in what he's being given right now. Arenado is not just some dude. He's paid and supposed to be your superstar. Don't try and skew what's taking place. Teams are going to be breaking down their door to pay over $20 million for defense. That's crazy. So here's the thing. Like, I do think we need a little bit of nuance to this discussion. We said over the offseason, the Cardinals can't just get rid of this contract, right? They're going to have to pay down some of that. Do we all agree on that part?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He has about $75 million remaining on his contract, roughly, for the next 3 years. 30 this year, 24 next, and then 15 in year 3 of that deal.
That's going to be a steal.
If they had to pay $35 million for somebody to take it on, right, over the next 3 seasons total. Okay, so that's like basically half of the contract that remains. Now you're paying over the next 3 seasons $12 million for Nolan Arenado to not play for you. And then you have to decide, are we going to go get another player to take that spot in the lineup? And if so, you're paying about $10 million for just an average major leaguer. Just somebody to come in and be a part of your roster, right? So now I'm paying $25 million for that spot in my lineup for it not to be Nolan Arenado. Does that make sense to anybody?
Nope.
Wouldn't it just make more sense to just have Nolan Arenado do that job for me right now?
Just keep him.
Like, really what you're talking about is next season. It's the $25 million for next year, because after that it's $15 million in year 3, whatever.
Yeah.
$15 million is what you would pay for a player like this, honestly, on the open market. That's just the value of a defense first third baseman at his age. So I don't think it's that big of a deal money-wise. You're going to be paying this money no matter what for that spot in your lineup. It's about if you value Arenado. And if you don't, that's cool, man. Like, if you think you just need a better hitter in your lineup, if what they're lacking is somebody to go in that spot in the order and produce more offensively than Arenado has, cool, we can have that discussion. I don't think any of the discussion at this point about Nolan Arenado really is about his salary and what he's producing relative to that salary any longer. This is a sunk cost. You're stuck with it in one way or another. And now it's about how do you value this specific player.
Yeah, well, and the other part of this at the offseason was everybody saying, well, you need to get runway for the other players you want answers on. Guys, I don't know about you, but I'm done with the whole Nolan Gorman thing. I don't need any more runway of Nolan Gorman. We've seen enough of Nolan Gorman to the point that I'd rather keep Nolan Arenado, who is a sure thing at third base with his defense, even if the bat doesn't play, when the offense around him is performing well. There's no more I need to see Nolan Gorman right now. I'm more liable to trade Nolan Gorman at the trade deadline to see what I can get back for that than I would with Nolan Arenado at the trade deadline. So that was the other factor into all of this, and I'm beyond that now. You're getting the playing time for the guys that you wanted to see in the offseason, so I don't need to do this anymore. And somebody might bring up Thomas Saggese. Look, we've seen Saggese. He's going to be a part of this team. I'm not breaking down the doors to get Thomas Saggese on this roster right now.
Not right now. Maybe there will come a point in time where that changes.
We might be talking about that.
But for the here and now, I think this is the roster. And I think I'm comfortable with that, man. I know I'm comfortable with it. The Cardinals are a good baseball club. How good are they? We'll find out. Over the next, 4 months, we're going to find out exactly how good this team is. And whether or not what they're doing right now is something that can sustain for that full amount of time. But, guys, let's be honest. There's probably going to be an injury at some point in time. And when that injury takes place, if it's in the outfield, Donovan might kick out to the outfield. And when that takes place, you're probably going to see JC there. Maybe it is Arenado that gets banged up. The guy's in his mid-30s. It's entirely possible that he misses some time this year.
He keeps going in the stands, he might.
Right? And if and when that takes place, I will be really curious to see. We talked about this a little bit on the Redbird Report, which you can find at youtube.com/101ESPN Who would replace Arenado in that instance? I'm not convinced that it would be Gorman. I think they would probably, given that they're winning and given that they're trying to win every game right now, I think the guy that gives them the best chance to win is actually JC on a pretty consistent basis. Like, you kick Donovan over to third, puts JC at second, and I think that gives you your best lineup personally. So I don't think Gorman's in this team's future plans. And in fact, if you asked me today, who is more likely to be traded for the Cardinals at the deadline? This is speculation, not reporting. But if I had to guess on who the Cardinals would be more likely to deal this year at the deadline, which of the Nolans, Gorman or Arenado, my answer to that would be Nolan Gorman.
Mine too.
I think he is the piece that could actually get you something of value at this year's deadline, whereas Arenado would be nothing more than a pure salary dump.
Well, and you're
I don't think
giving up
that's the
something.
position that the Cardinals are going to be in at this year's deadline.
Yeah, and you're giving up something that might impact the future if you trade that piece away so you could get rid of Nolan Arenado. So I'm with you. I think if you're going to be at the trade deadline where you feel like, hey, you know what, maybe we could try and make some noise, or if anything can happen in the playoffs. Let's move a Gorman and go get something we're missing, whether it's a high leverage arm for your bullpen or if it's a number 3 starter. But that can get you something in return that helps you now rather than giving up something to get rid of Nolan Arenado.
And the other thing, like, even if you do trade in Arenado, right? Think about what the strength of this ball club is. Sure, technically, yes, he is overpaid. That I agree with. I am more than happy to concede that argument. But he fits the identity of your team, right? And to your point of, long as sure, it is a sunken cost. Long as it doesn't become a sunken cost to where he's not hitting and he's not playing gold glove level defense, then there's a serious problem there. But let's be honest, if that was the case, you're probably not even able to trade him, right? There's not an amount of dollars that you could feed to another team to really take on that contract. He fits the identity of this team, which is, hey, how are the Cardinals going to win ball games? Just watch what happened over the weekend, right? You mentioned their defense was bad yesterday in that Baltimore game. Guess what? They lost because their defense, kind of. Fatty wasn't great, but the defense led to 2 unearned runs. You look at how they won over the weekend, outside of like one bad inning, which almost did cost them that ball game, by the way.
I think it was their worst inning defensively of the season.
I would agree with that. Their defense was excellent. That's what helped them win these ball games. So the fact that he is playing at this level defensively makes it to where he belongs on this team because he fits like a glove to the identity of what this team is and how they win baseball games.
Every team in the league that is planning to be a contender needs something they can hang their hat on. For some teams, that thing is starting pitching. For other teams, that thing is what their lineup is going to produce for them, right? Like the Dodgers and the Yankees, what can they hang their hat on? Their lineups are just going to produce like crazy. Hell, the Diamondbacks are kind of that team. For the Cardinals, it's defense. The number one thing that I go into every single Cardinals game this year knowing they're going to be good at is defense. Now, there have been individual innings or individual games, not many, but some, where that doesn't quite look the way that you anticipate it. Just like for the Yankees and the Dodgers, there are individual games where their offense does not produce the way that they expected. Didn't the Dodgers get swept by the Rockies this year? Is that right? They got swept
by the Angels.
Angels, that's who it was.
They only got 9 wins, so there's no way.
Weird stuff happens in Major League Baseball. But for the Cardinals, that thing is their defense. And so far this year, again, we're not talking about yesterday's game. That didn't count. That game excluded, they've been pretty damn good at it, and Arenado's a big piece of it.
Feels weird doing a show in St. Louis where we're just excluding one game.
Yeah, well, that's what we do. Coming up in 15 minutes, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers. But next, there's a really good cap explainer from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch earlier today on where the Blues are at and what that means for their offseason plans. Plus, Alex is a new trade candidate to consider. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. It's time to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. Check them out today online at victorymenshealth.com. If you feel like you don't have the same energy that you once did, you're not getting the same amount of results out of your workouts as you previously did, you're in your late 30s, early 40s maybe, it could be due to low testosterone. They can check those levels for you over at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. Again, 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. You can also find them online at victorymenshealth.com. They have a bunch of different programs that they can help to unlock your inner champion today at Victory Men's Health, whether that's with erectile dysfunction, weight loss goals that you're trying to meet. Again, low testosterone, as I mentioned. They also have a supplement shop, red light therapy programs, cardiovascular testing as well. They've got all kinds of great things over there at Victory Men's Health. They are also doing right now an advanced food sensitivity test for clients as well. It's part of their VIP program, but now it is also available for you without the program enrollment. So if that is something that you're interested in, it'll look at your response to 180 different foods, helps to identify potential sources of inflammation or symptoms. That's available for you at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today at victorymenshealth.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to Baltimore yesterday 5-2. Game 2 of their 3-game set with the Orioles is tonight. 5:35 will be first pitch. Andre Palante will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. CMLondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alex, I saw a trade piece over the weekend.
Yeah.
I really want Bo Byram.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
And it sure sounds like it's not going to take much to get him.
Hell yeah.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. This trade proposal from a fan out there, Blues fan, said all you have to give up, Justin Falk, first-round pick, Leo Loof, you get Bo Byram in return. And I said to myself,
was there something else in that trade proposal that you missed?
Where do I sign up? Now, it's worth noting Justin Falk has a no-trade clause, and he may be able to say no to a deal to Buffalo.
It's modified. He's got 15 other teams he probably hates more.
Guessing you probably wouldn't want to go there. But, dude, you were talking about like a early 20s pick. Leo Loof, who I don't know if he has a future with the Blues.
Do you know how many games Leo Loof has played in the AHL?
Probably at least a dozen.
Yeah, he has played a dozen.
And Justin
been there for like 3 years.
You know, I think he had a better year this year.
Let me work through this proposal. Byram, who is viewed as a young, up-and-coming, top 4, top pair potential defenseman.
You're seeing why I want to trade for him.
4, Justin Falk, who's got
top 4 defenseman.
Played in the top 4.
Yep.
He's making $6.5 million for this year and next year.
Sounds great.
A 20th overall pick. And a defenseman who hasn't even sniffed the NHL yet.
Call it in.
And Buffalo would say, Are you bleeping kidding me?
I mean, yeah, that's probably what they would say. I'm not sure that it is.
So they're gonna offset a guy who's gonna make somewhere around, because I think he's an RFA, somewhere around $7 million for a guy who's making $6.5 million.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You tell me if you want them to call it in or not. The reason I bring it up, we've had a few different people text in saying basically something to the effect of, hey, can you guys please talk about this trade proposal that we saw? Very unlikely. Very, 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 very unlikely for a million different reasons.
We all used tone, but this one sums it up best from the 314. Take our bad, old, overpaid defenseman for your young one.
Yeah. It's just really hard to get these types of deals done, and it becomes even more difficult when you're including a highly paid veteran with a no trade protection on his deal for a team like Buffalo. It's very difficult.
And let's make it clear with Byram, the only reason Byram's name is surfacing is because of the threat of an offer sheet. I guarantee you Buffalo isn't worried about an offer sheet for Byram, because if he gets an offer sheet that they're not going to pay, they'll take the draft picks. They'll take the 2 or 3 first-round picks that they're going to get for Byram, and if he doesn't do it, well, he's got to accept their offer to him, or he doesn't play. So this isn't they have to trade Bo Byram. Byram's still their property for at minimum 1 more year.
All right, so I say all of that to say this. The Blues could use a little bit of cap relief this offseason if they want to make a big move. Alex, when you look at where they're at cap sheet wise, it's not bad. Like, they're not in a bad place right now, but a lot of it comes down to the LTIR situation with Torrey Krug. All right, you ready to explain some math? It's not going to be the most fun thing in the world, but this is really important.
T-Bone, stay awake.
Like, North Star of the Blues offseason is basically, what's our plan with Torrey Krug?
Yeah.
Plan 1, trade him. Just get rid of the money off of the books.
Who wants to sign off on that?
You're probably going to have to give up, what do you think, a second-round pick? First-round pick? Because they don't have their second for the next 3 years.
Yeah,
so.
I would say you're probably looking at a second-round pick 3 years from now, or you're giving up this year's first-round pick.
Okay, so you're giving up a lot to trade Torrey Krug's contract effectively. That's scenario 1. I think it's pretty unlikely. So the more likely scenarios for the Blues this offseason are put them on LTIR throughout the offseason and get that $6.5 million to work with. It does limit a little bit your flexibility when you do something like that, but you basically would then have to spend all of that $6.5 million above the cap to make it worth your while. So they have $3.5 million right now. They add the $6.5 million with Torrey Krug's money. You have $10 million that not just you can spend this offseason, you basically have to spend all $10 million. Or another option, you wait until opening night to use that money. And then you have to be exactly at the cap, and you get to use that $6.5 million during the season in order to add players to your roster. So it adds for a little bit more flexibility during the season than if you were to use it during the offseason. Alex, I mention all of this because if they have $10 million to spend, and like I said, they basically have to do it for a bunch of cap reasons we don't have to get into right now, they're going to have to make a big move this offseason because they only have so many roster spots available for them this offseason. And to get that $10 million added to the cap, you're probably going to have to pay somebody like $7-ish million for next year. And I'm not talking about extensions. I'm talking about somebody new added to the roster that is making real money for this team. Or they have basically no flexibility without making any moves to the current roster. So it's a really interesting decision, and it all comes back to what's your plan with Torrey Krug?
Yeah, and I typically with Doug Armstrong, they're not the team, or he's not the team to put the player on LTIR in the offseason and basically have no flexibility if they spend to the cap once the season begins. He's the guy that likes to have wiggle room in the season to make trades. We've seen plenty of in-season trades by Doug Armstrong, but also you want the flexibility of being able to bring guys up and send guys down because of bonuses that they have. So I don't see him putting them on LTIR in the offseason and saying, cool, we've got all of this money to spend.
Then you better make some moves with guys that are currently on your roster. Otherwise, you have $3.4 million basically to spend this offseason.
And that's after Joel Hofer is signed to his extension, and if they sign Radek Faksa to the contract.
No, this is just what you have.
Okay, so then you got the $6.5 million. But mind you, you can go 10% over the salary cap in the offseason as long as you're cap compliant once the regular season roster is given.
There would be no reason to go 10% over because you would have to, like, for that cap space, you would want to be at the cap for the LTIR.
But then you put Krug on LTIR once you start the regular season.
I'm not positive how that works, honestly. Yeah. I think you have to be at the cap with Krug.
Yeah, this is the part that is the very confusing side of it, but Doug Armstrong is not a guy that likes to have zero wiggle room once the season begins. That's one thing that we have seen a lot from him. Like, he is not going to be a team that gets to the cap and then says, cool, there's no moves that we can do. There's no ups and downs. This is our roster. So, I mean, it is going to be an interesting offseason, but because of the LTIR and the flexibility, depending on what they want to do with it, I do wonder if they view this as, hey, we've got this money to spend. Let's try and upgrade in this certain area. This is why I don't see them going into the free agent market, because all of the money and the dollars that's going to have to be given out, you're talking about north of $8 million. I mean, even there was a report over the weekend that Sam Bennett, there's one team willing to spend $10 million on him. You're not playing in those waters. If you're playing in waters, it's going to be via trade, bringing in somebody who makes somewhere between 3 and 5, and then you give them the next contract the following year once the cap figures itself out a little bit more.
So there was a piece earlier today over on the Daily Faceoff, and you mentioned it, Alex. You think that probably trade is more likely than free agency. Mm-hmm. They put together their top 20 trade candidates. Some of the names that are on this list are names that we have heard in the past. One, for example, Chris Kreider. We don't have to talk about him because the Blues don't need a winger, but if they did, I would be telling you about how much they need Chris Kreider. That's not going to happen. We don't have to spend any more time on it. Marco Rossi is on here. We've talked about him, a center for the Minnesota Wild. I feel like it's very unlikely they end up trading within the division, so we can go ahead and move on from that. Bo Byram is another one that is on this list. Alex, who did you see on this list that stood out to you? Among the potential candidates, we could spend more time on them in a future show or a future hour, but for you, who were the names, or the name specifically, that stood out?
The name specifically was Rasmus Andersson from the Calgary Flames, right-handed defenseman. Now, I understand that we need a centerman. The Blues need a centerman, and that's what everybody is talking about. But we also had the conversations of Aaron Ekblad being a free agent, and would you spend money on him? Rasmus Andersson is a right-shot defenseman who just posted 11 goals. He's 28 years old, and he's got 1 year left at $4.5 million. Now, why would the Calgary Flames trade him? Because they don't believe they're going to be able to re-sign him. This would still cost you a lot, because Calgary has no reason to trade this guy. But if you're shoring up your top 4 defensemen, we're talking about a guy who, don't look at his plus minus this year, because you'll see it and you'll be like, I don't want a guy who's minus 38. We said that about Cam Fowler, and he was a very good player. But Anderson is a defensive first, big defenseman, plays physical in front of his net, eats about 23 minutes a night. This would be a guy that
Swedish.
He is Swedish.
He's a Blue.
Almost a guarantee. But he's a free agent after this year. So you are talking about probably having to pay him closer to $7 million. But if you're talking about shoring up your defense for next year, I would go down this path rather than trying to throw $8 million at Aaron Ekblad.
It makes me a little nervous that the defensive numbers have really fallen off of a cliff in the last couple of seasons. Now, some of that is also because of the team that he plays on. I understand that. But I'm not just talking about plus minus. Some of the underlying metrics are not really exciting. He also does not hit anybody. Like, he's a pure zero physicality type of player.
He plays strong in front of his net, and he blocks shots.
Sure. I would be interested. I would also be curious to see what the contract is going to have to look like. He's 28, about to be 29 years old, so you're talking about an age 30 extension with him potentially. Mm-hmm. And depending on what you're going to have to give up for him, I like the idea of adding a right-shot defenseman that can be in your top 4 and stabilize things in that way. I just wonder, what's the money situation going to look like, and is this the specific guy that you want to, like, throw all of your assets at?
Yeah, no, and this guy's, I brought up a lot of trade candidates already this offseason. This guy's bottom priority list. I saw his name, and this was from Daily Faceoff's, players to be traded list. He's the only one that's interesting to me on that list, with the exception of Marco Rossi, but just mark that one off because he's not going to get traded to St. Louis. So there's not a whole lot of trade candidates, at least on Frank Saravalli's list. I think there will be more that kind of become apparent as the offseason moves along. But again, I believe the priority for the Blues is fixing that center spot. If you're going to go the other direction, if you're not going to willing to spend $8 million on Aaron Ekblad, this would be a fallback option for you.
Or Eric Carlson, that's another option. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. We'll have some questions for Katie Wu, our Cardinals insider, coming up in about 20 minutes. But right now, we will take some from you. From the 636, guys, what would your reaction be if the Cardinals sent down Jordan Walker to AAA? We'll talk about this a little bit more extensively coming up in the next segment. I would think that the timing would be more than puzzling. Like, it would be one of the most puzzling decisions they've made in the last decade, and that's saying something. But if he goes back into a massive slump, and I guess that's maybe what we're talking about here, I would say that it's clear that they were committed to him, so something must have happened. I mean, what they have shown in the first 2 months of the season is that Walker, above really anybody else, is the guy that gets the leash. He's the one that gets the grace period, because even despite all of his offensive struggles, he's still been in the lineup every day. That was not the case for Burleson. That was not the case for Nolan Gorman. He's the only guy that's been treated that way. So it would be very surprising, and it would signify that there's something in the equation that has changed.
Yeah, I would be very frustrated with it, because even if he goes through a massive slump, the whole point is to help him figure it out at this level. I don't think sending him down to Memphis does any good. In fact, I think it does more damage than good.
Yeah, I think if he goes back through another one of those big slumps, which he had about a month ago, it would be a sign to me of, one, they're potentially giving up on the Jordan Walker experience, but two, also saying, hey, look, we are now into win now mode. And that would be, to me, them saying we can't win with Walker in the lineup, which I don't think they'd get to this spot, but they would say, hey, he's become too much of a problem for us in terms of not producing, that we have to try and find a better answer there. And we think Sajaci gives us a shot, because my guess would be Sajaci would be called up, Donovan would go out to the outfield.
Makes sense. From the 314, guys, what would your solution be for Herrera in the catcher situation? It seems to me as though the catcher, or they love Pages defensively, but playing him so much takes away at-bats from Burleson or Walker, since Herrera is currently the full-time DH. I think that's exactly what's happening, is one of those two guys has to lose playing time in order for Burleson to get that opportunity. I've been okay with the way that they're playing it, though. As long as Herrera has to be the priority right now. He has got to be in the lineup every single day. And that means he's caught twice since his return, literally 2 times in that stretch. He's essentially your third catcher. Pozo right now is effectively working as the second catcher. I think they just have to make it work. And so far, I think they've done a pretty good job of doing so. Burleson has had an extended runway. There was that time where Wilson Contreras was off with the back issues over the weekend, so he got the extended runway there. You've seen him at times get the day for Jordan Walker when Walker has those work days involved, especially if you're going up against a righty. I think they're handling this about as well as you possibly could.
Yeah, I've got no problems with this right now. I think this is the way you go about it, because if you do put Herrera back there, obviously you take a little hit defensively. I don't mind the idea of Herrera playing back there, but I also think it's important health-wise to keep Herrera healthy, and putting him behind the plate puts you at risk.
Yeah, I think right now, maybe you do once every 6 games behind the plate, and then that way you get a series where you do work Burleson in twice. When you put Herrera behind the plate, you can DH Burley and put Walker in the outfield. But Burley's going to get his at-bats, because though Walker is a everyday player, they still are kind of using, I don't think platoon's the right word, but when there are bad slider matchups, the Cardinals are more than willing to say, hey, look, Walker is still developing here at the big leagues. Let's not have him go up against just a wicked slider. Let's put Burley in the lineup there. So I think they've been handling it well.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. From the 314, what percentage likelihood do you guys think is the chances that we could see Michael McGreevy start a game in the month of June? They only have 2 days off the entire month. Could they consider bringing him up for a spot start, or would they look to someone else? They could do that. I think at this point, your rotation's fine. There's no real need to add that spot starter in.
They're talking about going to a 6-man again, because I think they've got 2 days off in June. I would go McGreevy.
Question.
I would do McGreevy as the spot start.
Why would they do a 6-man starting rotation right now?
Because they've got 2 days off in June.
Sure, but why is that necessary?
Isn't that what they did last time, though, that they did a 6-man rotation? They had no days off.
April. The whole idea was, because it's April, we need a 6-man rotation, and that's when the majority of the injuries happen.
Tell me if you've heard this before. I think they're learning some of the wrong lessons. But I think they, at least based on what Michaelis has said publicly, and I remember I asked BT, we were at Enterprise Center, so it was during the playoff run at the last time they did this. I said, hey, do you think this could become a norm? Because Michaelis said, hey, I really like having that extra day. It gives me more time to kind of fine-tune my stuff. I think that's why they will do it. Now, I think they will go with Matz over McGreevy. I would personally say, hey, you send down Swanson, you lower the bullpen number just for a day or two, and you bring up McGreevy. He takes that spot. So that way you keep Matz in that high leverage left-handed spot with JoJo Romero.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'd be fine. To be clear, that Swanson spot, whether that's Swanson, Roy Croft, Roderick Munoz that you've seen a little bit, whether Fernandez gets himself back on track, like you could use him in that spot as well. You have enough arms as you could churn through that you don't really have to worry about like the number of days that a guy has to be down. You could just basically cycle through all of them. So I'm fine with them going to this plan. I just think to answer the question directly, I think it makes way more sense with McGreevy than it does with Steven Matz. I think at this point, Matz is in the role that best suits him. Yeah. I think you are a reliever now, Steven Matz, and you can make yourself a hell of a living moving forward to be that guy. You've got to convince him of that. I'm sure there's some buy-in situation there where you just have to say, like, hey, I know it's a walk year for you. Your best way to make the most money possible is to really buy into this role and reinvent yourself as a lefty leverage reliever. You can make $10 million a year doing this. He made 11 on his last contract as a starter.
Well, and there's bullpen arms that haven't started in 5-6 years that are still getting that dollar figure, right? It's like it doesn't even necessarily have to be I'm a reliever. No, man, I remember Ronaldo Lopez hadn't started in 2 years, and all of a sudden he's back to being a starter. So these guys can change on the fly rather quickly.
Yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense that way. I don't know if it's necessary for them to go to a 6-man rotation, but if they decide internally, hey, this is something that makes sense for us, cool. I don't have necessarily any issues for it. By the way, I was just looking at the schedule. We've got some fun home games in the month of June. We've got a series against the Royals, series against the Dodgers, series against the Cubs. It's a pretty damn good home slate for the month of June. Should be a lot of fun out there at Busch Stadium if things keep going the way that they have thus far. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll talk to our friend and Cardinals insider, Katie Woo. We'll ask her why she went with So Taguchi as the right fielder for the Cardinals of the last 25 years, the quarter-century team. We'll talk to her about that at 12:15. But next, are we starting to see legitimate signs of progress from Jordan Walker? We'll talk about that here on BK and Ferrario.
middle Tapper. He's got good speed. Charging hard at short. No play. Infield hit for Walker. Hey, two-hit game. You take them any way you can get them. Swing and a line drive into left field. A base hit. Burleson got a great jump. That ball gets to the wall. One run scores. Here comes Arenado. He is going to score. Jordan Walker coming up in a huge spot right here. Line drive center field. Cardinals take the lead right back. Jordan Walker got the big knock, drove in 2 in the 7th inning. Then ball at him, gets past him, couple runs score, and then gets the big knock again to give the team the lead.
Alex, when we got to May 14th, Jordan Walker was batting 180. The expected average on that was basically the same, 192. He had 2 doubles, 2 home runs, and struck out 43 times in 122 at-bats. It had not been going well for Jordan Walker. And then since May 14th, we're talking about basically a 2-week stretch here, he's batting .321. He has 2 doubles, same as he had in that first month and a half of the season combined, 1 home run, 10 strikeouts and 28 at-bats. He does not have a walk in his last 2 weeks of play. So the strikeout to walk ratio, still not what you'd want. There are some underlying signs here of okay, it's not perfect, but it's progress, man. And what we have been waiting for with Jordan Walker this season is, can you show me signs of progress? He's hitting the ever-living crap out of the baseball. In the last 2 weeks, the average exit velo is a hard hit ball by Jordan Walker. That's the average exit velo for him. So we're seeing a guy that looks more comfortable. They switched his hand placement. They think that's going to give him a little bit more of an ability to get to the ball than what he had been previously. Just whatever it takes right now to get Jordan Walker more comfortable, that's what I'm in favor of. It's a 9-game sample size. In baseball parlance, this is nothing. But when you're watching it, Alex, it feels like everything. Yesterday wasn't good, but the 8 games prior really were something worth getting excited about. How are you feeling about Jordan Walker right now? Because it's been a bumpy ride this season. At least we're seeing some signs of progress, though, so that's what I'm personally latching on to.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people should be latching on to. This is what it's about. At the end of the season, we're not going to be sitting here talking about Jordan Walker looks like he's ready to be the superstar. But at the end of the season, you hope that you're talking about a guy that from the beginning to the end, you saw life. You saw progress with a guy that looked like it was lifeless at the end of last season. So this is, again, it's going to be a bumpy ride, I think, for the rest of this season. You're going to have the ups and downs, but I think this 9-game sample size kind of tells you where Jordan Walker's at. This where he's out for a couple of days and working on the sides with Brant Brown and John Jay, it's working because you're seeing the effect of it in these last 9 games. Now, the consistency is the next part. Can you string 9 games to be 20 games? Can you string that to be 30 games? Or do you fall back into that hole? Again, all of these are the lessons that I think the Cardinals are trying to find out on top of what Jordan Walker is trying to find out. So I don't feel any different than what I did at the beginning of the season. It's not like this 9-game sample size is like, hot damn, there's the Jordan Walker we were expecting to see. But the 9-game sample size kind of proved the point of what we were talking about this season. This was the hope. You're starting to see the progress. You're starting to see the growth from Jordan Walker. And by the end of the season, you hope that it's not 9 games we're talking about. You're talking about 40 games.
Yeah, he looks better in this 9-game stretch. He looks more confident at the plate. But to what you said, what I'm really keeping my eye on for is, okay, how long can you sustain this, right? It's not about having success from this point till the end of the year, because you are still going to go through some lulls. But remember early on in the year, there was that, it was about the same size. It was about 8 games early on. And it was 333 the batting average, 878 the OPS. And we were like, whoa, okay, this looks a little better. And then it was just, boom, right back to same old Jordan Walker. That's what I'm watching to see is, okay, can he avoid kind of reverting back to old habits? Whatever it is that's working now, whether it's the hands, something else that the Cardinals have worked on him with, it does look better. He's not drawing any walks, but he's doing damage on pitches that are in the zone. And he's hitting fastballs right now, which is a good sign. My question is going to be, okay, what does it look like after this point? As we're talking today, look, this is better, but for me to really say, hey, okay, now I'm really starting to believe in what Jordan Walker is doing, I'm going to have to see a much longer stretch, and that's what I'm hoping we're going to start to see from him.
By the way, this is why I'm not sending him down at any point this season, even if he does go into another hole, because sending him down sets you back a little bit, and now you're hoping that this progress can turn into something.
So I I always think comparing players is a difficult exercise, but like this time last year, Jackson Chourio woke up with a 205 batting average, a 250 on base, and he was slugging 320. Those are slightly better numbers, especially the slugging percentage, than what we have seen so far this year from Jordan Walker, but they're not all that dissimilar. Like similar struggles early on for Chourio last year to Walker this year. Again, it's not a one-for-one. It was the first experience for Chourio up at the big league level. This is the third year of Jordan Walker being at the big league level. So it's not a one-for-one. I readily acknowledge that. However, the struggles were real, and there were calls for like, what do you do here? What do you do if you're the Milwaukee Brewers? And their answer was continue playing him every single day. Into the month of June, Alex, he rewarded them with a 325 average, a 375 on base. He hit 4 doubles and 4 home runs. That's good for a 920 OPS. In other words, he was like an all-star caliber player in the month of June. I'm not telling you that's what Jordan Walker's going to become. He's not a one-for-one replacement of Jackson Chourio from a year ago, but it's a reminder that this happens, man. He's not the only one that goes through these kinds of struggles. Hell, you look across Major League Baseball right now, there are guys that you think of as really good hitters that have just gotten off to a crap start. Last year it was Corbin Carroll, who's an excellent hitter. We just saw that this weekend. That guy rocks. But last year, for the first 3 months of the season, he was dog crap at the plate. And it took a really long time. And even by the end of the season, he never dug himself out of the terrible start that he had. So hopefully Walker finds something that gets him back on track. And if he's able to, man, I hope he goes on an absolute tear, because his reaction to that double was just such a release. And for him to be able to have that moment of go ahead RBI, terrible defensive play that potentially was going to lose them the game, and then to bring them back into the game again, that was an awesome moment for him. What was that, Saturday that he had that? That was just a huge game, I have to imagine, for him mentally. And yesterday, I will be curious, how does he respond to that? He was terrible yesterday. No other way about it. 3 strikeouts in the 4 at-bats did not look competitive in many of the at-bats against Charlie Morton. What's it look like today? Go back out there. Let's see what you're able to do. I want to see more of it with Jordan Walker, and I am hopeful that maybe this latest tweak that they've been able to make for him is something that can unlock a little bit more of his ability. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We're going to talk to Katie Wu, Cardinals insider, about that, plus her reaction to the crowds this weekend at Busch Stadium and why she had So Taguchi on her 25-year list for the Cardinals team, the all-Cardinals team from the last 25 years. We'll talk to Katie about all of that coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Always happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline on Mondays, but this week on a Tuesday to be joined by our friend, the Cardinals insider for The Athletic. She is Katie Woo joining us here on the show. Katie got some FaceTime on the broadcast over the weekend for her scorecard situation. I know she was thrilled about that. Katie, we appreciate the time as always. How you doing today?
I'm well, guys. I didn't expect to be dragged on live air by our beloved Chip Carey and Brad Thompson, but knowing those two goofs, I guess I should have expected that. At least they got me on a good hair day. So,
do you have a response? I know that they dragged you for the way that you put your
because it is weird, Katie.
Out there.
It is weird.
No, it's weird. It's weird. Look, I know it's weird. I started keeping score at a very early age and didn't realize the way I was doing it was wrong. And then when it was pointed out to me, I just got defiant. I was like, well, I'm going to keep doing it this way, and I'm going to continue doubling down and doing it poorly. So I don't care. When the Hall of Fame calls for, I don't know, a Matthew Liberatore perfect game, they're not going to want my scorebook because it's wrong. And that's just something that I'm going to have to deal with.
You know what I respect about you, though, Katie? You stick to your guns. No matter what people argue.
This is why Katie gets our show.
Yeah, cool. So, Katie, let's move on to the next
I'm wrong,
one.
But I don't care.
So let's move on to the next one, Katie. Why was Soda Gucci on your all-century team? Because you were wrong on this one.
Hear me out, because I can argue this one. Right field. First of all, for those of you who are unfamiliar, The Athletic is doing an all-quarter century team that Jason Stark did, and then we decided select writers with, bigger franchises would do one for their own organization. So I broke down the best Cardinals from each position from 2000 to 2025. Not exactly an easy thing to do, considering I was 4 years old in 2000. So
T-Bone gets that.
I went and I asked around the organization on who would you pick? Because right field in particular was a little weak for me. And there are plenty of other names with bigger career resumes, right? You can go Carlos Beltran, Lance Berkman, J.D. Drew. But So Taguchi, not even because he was a fan favorite, I chose him because he came to life when the Cardinals needed him to do so the most in the 2006 World Series. That was our first World Series in over 20 years. And I just felt like that was the right call. And could I be wrong? Sure. But for what he did in a short amount of time, it was when the Cardinals needed him to do it the most. And that deserves some merit, I think.
I do respect it. I have been somebody that says, I think fans were correct in voting in David Freese into the Cardinals Hall of Fame. His career is not worthy of that honor, but his moment, his postseason was worthy of that. And so, I really value that, right? The most beloved players in any city are the players that won there. And they may not be the best ones, but they are the ones that gave you the most fond memories. So I respect it. You're still wrong.
Yeah.
Because Lance Berkman and Carlos Beltran
J.D.
also
Drew,
did a whole lot of winning here. Drew would not be up there for me.
Drew would be on there.
Berkman and Beltran, to me, would be the ones that I would go with. But I respect the fact that you're standing on this and that you're doubling down once again.
You were right everywhere else. The starting pitching was exactly what we
100%.
talked about. Every other position, the closer, but you were just wrong on that one.
I do think this is the one spot where you can have some fun with it, though, Katie, because everything else is you just write it in pen. It's super easy. The right field spot is the one spot where I do think there's at least a legitimate argument to be had.
Except your scorebook. Don't write that in pen.
You can't roll something out like that and have everyone agree with you. I had to spice it up a little bit. And you guys have no idea how close I was putting Miles Michaelis into that rotation.
Ooh.
Over who?
Yeah, who are you going to take out?
See, the problem was I wasn't sure between Michael Wacha, Jaime Garcia, and Miles Michaelis who should take that final spot. And I could probably still be convinced about Jaime Garcia, to be honest. But for those Michaelis haters, just look at his body of work in general for what he's did with the Cardinals. I'm not saying he deserves to be in it, but I am saying he's worthy of a conversation.
T-Bone thinks he's a Cardinals. T-Bone thinks he's a Cardinals Hall of Famer.
I'm sure.
I'm serious. He actually believes that he should get a red jacket because you look at some of the numbers. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue other than me watching it and saying I'm not sure that I agree that should be the way that it goes. But T-Bone truly believes this.
I love Katie's response.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that response.
I thought it was gold.
All right, Katie, let's get into this with some of the more recent stuff that we've seen. So Jordan Walker yesterday, obviously, we're setting that game aside entirely for our discussion for the most part today.
Watch it.
Just pretend it never happened. I think that's probably the right way to approach it. Walker's been better. It's not perfect, but it's been a hell of a lot better. He's hitting 325 with a little bit of pop over the last 2 weeks. When you're around this team and you talk with, whether it be Ollie Marmol or others inside of the organization, what's changed and how much optimism do they have that it's something that can stick?
What's changed has been something that you can't really manage or see on the box score. It's all internal. It's the buy-in from both sides. I think Ollie Marmol's done a tremendous job of committing to Jordan Walker. I think Brant Brown has done a heck of a job committing to Jordan Walker. And I think Jordan Walker has done a really nice job in committing back to the organization. Now, I don't want to go out there and suggest that in any way Jordan Walker was defiant or disillusioned with the Cardinals during his last 2.5 years. But when you think about how his first 2 years in the big leagues went and the mixed messaging and the argument that he was never really put in a position to succeed, you could understand why there might have been some trepidation in believing the organization going forward. That's why it was so important to bring in some new voices like Brant Brown, like John Jay. And that's why it was so important for Ollie to really put his time and care into this relationship with Jordan Walker before the season and stick with it over the last, end of April into the first half of May when it really was going so dreadful, because Jordan needs to buy into the organization. And to do that, the organization has to buy into him. It's a two-way street. And you're seeing this conviction that they have, both sides in each other, that's allowed Jordan to trust in this and be committed to what the Cardinals' plan is for maybe the first time in his young tenure. And I saw that evidenced after the Atlanta series when Jordan started to really slide. And it was, again, just a dreadful performance offensively for a couple of weeks. The Cardinals didn't panic. For the first time ever, they didn't change it up. They gave him a couple of off days behind the scenes to work on things, but that's pretty standard for a guy struggling. And then they kept playing him every day, regardless of how bad it looked. And now we're seeing a little bit of a turnaround. That's the whole point of the season for Jordan. And for the first time, the Cardinals are sticking to it, and Jordan is sticking to it as well. So that's what I think we're seeing here.
Another guy who had a really good weekend, Katie, was Nolan Arenado, and we talked about him at the beginning of our show, just the impact that he's been having on this team on top of the offense and the role that he's kind of moved into. Bob Nightingale reported over the weekend that, look, if the Yankees need help on the right side of the right-handed hitter with a third base, the Cardinals should make that trade. Do you feel like the Cardinals are in a position now to where when they get to the deadline that Nolan Arenado still would be a piece they'd move on from, or has he become a piece of this core?
First, I love Bob Nightingale, literally my favorite. And I don't disagree with that logic, but the Yankees have never once expressed an interest in Nolan Arenado dating back to the offseason, dating back to when LeMahieu went down in spring training, dating back to right now. So yeah, logically on paper, it makes sense, but there's a lot of moving parts there, especially with Nolan's contract, that the Yankees are pretty turned off by. That's a great question, though. I am so fascinated to see what these Cardinals do at the deadline, because I kind of think, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, that they can do both in terms of still build for the future and contend right now. And I know we spent most of spring training and the early part of April lamenting the fact that the organization had no direction. I'm prepared to be a hypocrite in this scenario. We've established this already in our segment of the show. They can do both. They can contend in the NL Central and still look to build on the future. What that means for Nolan Arenado, I don't know. But if you want to contend in 2025, especially given how Nolan Gorman looks lately, Arenado has to be your third baseman. Now, is that best for the long-term future of the club? Probably not. But this is where the interesting balance comes to play, because you can still keep Nolan and maybe try to trade him in the offseason if you're Chaim Bloom. If you want to contend, he is once again one of the top third basemen in the league, and I know he's not exactly thrilled with where he is offensively, but he's been a major impact on this Cardinals club. So would the Cardinals entertain keeping him and then trying to move just 2 years of his salary compared to 2.5? Maybe, but it really just depends if they can stay in contention. And honestly, guys, based on their current style of play, I kind of think they will.
I think they will as well. I don't know what that means for their ceiling, but I think the floor is pretty high for this team. I'll ask you the question that we discussed a little bit earlier today then, Katie. Who do you think is more likely to be dealt by the Cardinals at this year's deadline, Nolan Gorman or Nolan Arenado?
This is such a fun question. This is so fun, because this is what we're going to be looking at over the next 6 weeks, right? It's way too early as we sit here on May 27th to talk about who are the Cardinals going to trade. But it is not too early to talk about who needs to perform right or well so that they're not a topic of trade consideration. And that's exactly where I am with Nolan Gorman. Look, we know that Ollie Marmol has been struggling to find him playing time. You're not taking Ivan Herrera out of the lineup. That's malpractice. You probably shouldn't take Burleson out of the lineup against righties because he is the more consistent bat. And the Cardinals have done a really nice job offensively across the board. Where does that leave Nolan Gorman, especially because they're going to commit to playing Jordan Walker, as we talked about? Leaves him on the bench. So what Nolan Gorman can do and what will be a limited sample size over the next 6 weeks, I think will dictate, could he be a key trade piece? He's still so young. He still has so much power. He has a lot of team control remaining. Does he fit with the Cardinals club of the future? That's what the whole point of the season is they're trying to figure out. So over the next 6 weeks, I'm watching Nolan Gorman like a hawk, because I think it will dictate whether or not his Cardinals future is still in St. Louis or if it's somewhere else. I'm not saying he will be traded. I'm not saying that's even something the Cardinals are considering. I'm just saying we'll have a better answer as we see how this plays out over the next 6 weeks.
Katie, the starting pitching has significantly outperformed what our expectations were at the beginning of the season. But is there any concern level from you of it sustaining for the rest of the season?
Yeah, once again, another thing that I was totally right about, the rotation being good.
Us too.
You saw Liberator coming for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all saw that.
I actually was a Libby believer, but I didn't believe in the organization doing what they did to Libby.
Earned.
My bad. My bad. I do have some concerns when you just think about the overall sustainability. I wrote about this in The Athletic a couple of weeks ago. There are a couple guys outperforming the expected slug, the expected ERA. Anytime you have a pitch to contact ground ball staff, you worry about balls getting through. That is quite literally the nature of the game. You see it sometimes happen with Fetty. Palante can be a victim of that. Miles Michaelis has done a heck of a job turning it around. So I'll commend the Cardinals and Dusty Blake for figuring out a way to be successful and pitching to their strengths. You also have to see, is this long-term feasibility with a ground ball staff going to last? And with this defense, they're certainly buying themselves more time, but that's why there's been a concentrated effort in working in more swing and miss. And that's not something that's going to take place overnight. It's going to be a season-long effort to try to keep the contact as weak as possible. You feel good about Michael McGreevy in AAA. Knock on wood, the Cardinals have not had any major injuries to their rotation yet. That itself is praise for Dusty and Ollie. How they've gotten away with that, I don't know. The Dodgers, for example, for all 800 pitchers they have, still have had trouble filling out their rotation all season long. So in a time in the game where pitching injuries are legit and serious, the Cardinals have done a great job in making sure their starters stay healthy. Shout out Steven Matz for what he's done in that hybrid role. So my main questions and concerns going forward is the ground ball rate, and it is also the long-term health. But right now they're doing a nice job.
Have you looked at John Gant's numbers from 2021 and compared them to Eric Fetty's numbers through 11 starts in 2025, Katie?
No, who would do that?
TBT to John Gant. Wow.
No, BK's just bored a lot, as you can tell.
Do you remember that? You were here for that John Gant season, right, Katie?
I was. He had cornrows. So that was
He did.
Yeah, very memorable. And then he went across the diamond and became a part of the Minnesota Twins after they said, we are not believing in this high wire act. He had a 2.6 ERA through his first 11 starts.
Ace.
John Gant Eric Fetty has a 3.9 ERA. The FIP for Gant that year, 4.5. The FIP for Fetty this year, 4.5. Just makes me a little nervous. It makes me a little queasy when I see the walk numbers that we've seen from Fetty so far this year.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes down to sustainability. Is this long-term going to pan out? The metrics suggest no. The performance suggests yes. Which one are we believing? I don't know.
I want to say the performance, but I just...
Yeah, BK's super negative these days.
No, I'm really not. I think this is a fun and a good club and one worth believing in. I just get a little anxious about the rotation. That's really the one thing that's kind of holding me back right now. Like, I kind of like Michaelis, what we've seen from him since that Boston start. I feel really good about Liberator. Sonny Gray has been excellent. I wonder on Palante and Fetty on whether or not this is going to be sustainable.
Who here does not have trust issues courtesy of the St. Louis Cardinals?
I have them for many reasons, Katie.
We want to believe. We want to believe. And I think this is actually a club worth believing in. But if there's some skepticism, if you just don't want to get hurt again, I get it. I understand it. But right now, man, how fun is this club to just go out there and watch every day? I mean, I feel like minus yesterday, they're always in it.
I've got one final question for you. We're talking to Katie Wu, Cardinals insider for The Athletic. You can find all of her great work over at The Athletic. She wrote about the 7 trends that she's been seeing from the team lately. You can find that on her Twitter account at Katie J. Wu. The ballpark, 36,000, I think, was the average attendance over the weekend. T-Bone was out there on Friday, said it was a fantastic crowd. I know a lot of the guys were talking about this after the series as well, how great it was at Busch Stadium. That was a vibe that we have not seen really at the park since the opening weekend of the year against the Twins. How did it feel to you? Do you think that's something that will continue into the summer months if the team continues to play well?
I loved the vibe at Busch Stadium over the weekend. We'll point out that, of course, it was Memorial Day weekend, so probably that aided in the attendance. But It made such a difference in the later innings because all three of those games against Arizona, tight one-run ball games that could go either way. And to hear the crowd get locked in on every pitch and to see them on their feet, to see them rallying behind, whether it was Arenado's triple, whether it was the come from behind, giving up the 4 spot and fighting right back, the Jordan Walker game on Saturday, the final strikeout from Phil Maton to sweep the series. It reminded me of why baseball is special in St. Louis, because that kind of crowd reaction absolutely fires up the players on the field. I won't say who, but a player texted me Friday night after the game, and he didn't even necessarily have a great game personally, said that atmosphere was great, and they really missed that. And you go across the board, you talk to the young guys who are figuring out what it's like to play in an electric Busch Stadium environment for the first time. That stuff is addicting, and you see it on their reactions. Burleson, Walker, Victor Scott, they're loving it. And I hate seeing Busch Stadium look like a ghost town. I really liked the vibes over the last weekend. I know it's going to take some time for the Cardinals fans to maybe buy back into their baseball team. We just talked about this. I get it, but I hope it continues because that's the kind of baseball that should be played in St. Louis, one where the fans are in it on every pitch and the team responds accordingly.
Doesn't hurt on a Friday night when you can get $5 beers, $6 margaritas up in that upper right-hand corner of the stadium.
Send that to the press box. What are we doing?
I mean, you can walk over there, Katie. It's not all that far from the press box, let's be honest here.
Can't let her back in. What are you doing?
Katie's got
Finish it
6
before you go
margaritas
back
on
in.
a tray.
Me and I come like a service tray. Hey, everyone.
Katie, we appreciate the time as always. We look forward to these each and every week. We'll talk with you again next Monday.
You got it, guys. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. That's Katie Wu joining us as she does each and every Monday here on BK and Ferrario this week, of course.
Every Monday.
Pushing that out to a Tuesday because of the holiday weekend.
Yeah, every Monday. By the way, every single person that listened to that went to look at the stat sheet on Friday's game to see who Katie was talking about.
What do you mean?
When she said the player that texted her and told her about the atmosphere, you had a bad game.
Oh, I didn't notice that part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just me. T-Bone smirked over there, so I was assuming he was doing it too.
Did you go back and look?
I did.
Maybe.
Yeah, I did.
I also just want to point out, Miles Michaelis didn't deserve that kind of reaction.
She gave
when
the
brought up as
proper-
potential
To
Cardinals
be
Hall of
clear,
Famer.
that wasn't about Miles Michaelis.
No, that was about you. Yeah. Yeah.
Just so we're all on the same page
And
here.
it was a proper response.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
She's basically saying, like, Miles Michaelis is the antithesis of a Tanner Hendrickson pitcher. So the idea that you would be the one spearheading the argument for him to be in the Cardinals Hall of Fame is laughable at best and difficult to believe at worst.
Yeah, Katie knew. Katie knew what we all knew.
That you don't actually believe this. He's Tanner. That's Alex on BK. If you missed any of our conversation with Katie Wu, check it out on the podcast page after the show today, 101ESPN.com, or the free 101ESPN app is where you go to find that. You can always check her out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. When she's not traveling, she tries to join us on the YouTube stream as well over there. Coming up next, I do want to stick with the attendance, Alex. It's starting to mirror the Cardinals' performance. Is that something that will continue? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here. They Sports Update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to Baltimore yesterday 5-2. Game 2 of their 3-game set is tonight. 5:35 will be first pitch. Andre Palante will get the start for St. Louis. This Sports Update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. SeaMilano.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Marsha over on the YouTube chat says, T-Bone, I thought I saw you at the game on Friday up by the band at the Budweiser Terrace. Great game, but boy, howdy. 6 o'clock Marg lines sure were long.
Dude, they were long. That was wild.
It's smart. The Cardinals are getting this right, dude. They get a lot of things wrong, but they have figured out how to get fans in the stands. $5 beers, $5 hot dogs, $6 margaritas, and they start that, I think, an hour before first pitch on Friday nights.
Didn't they do $5 beers last year?
They've had that before, yeah.
I was going to say, I thought the beers.
But it's up until first pitch. It used to be the Budweiser Terrace part. You could get the Busch Light. I think it was draft, if I'm not mistaken, up until first pitch for an hour or so. But then once first pitch happened, I think it was like one night a week. It was just the $5 beers, if I'm not mistaken. But
margaritas
now,
are always smart.
Dude,
beers, margaritas, and hot dogs, dude.
I was right. I had my hot dog in my hand. I had the food, and I had my hat on from the, the giveaway they had, and I had my Margaritaville shirt because it was Margaritaville night. I was ready for my margarita, and I said, hey, Uncle John, $6 margaritas. Let's go. We walked into line. I'm not kidding. Had to be like 50 people long. And I went, well, I'm already in paradise.
How about a $12 margarita instead?
You know what combo doesn't go together? Hot dogs and margaritas.
Hard disagree. Anything goes with a margarita.
No, I'm sorry. Not a hot dog. Not a hot dog.
Yeah.
Hot dog and a beer, in for. Hot dog and a margarita, no.
Or you would just go get the nachos instead? You pay $12 for the nachos.
Or I just drink the margarita. I don't need the hot dog with the beer or with the margarita.
From the 816, I saw Tan Man housing a glizzy at the game on Friday night.
That checks out. That checks out.
You caught me in my happy
How many
place.
did you have?
Hot dogs or margaritas?
I think I just had one.
Yes.
I had one hot dog, no margaritas.
Did you go with the beer?
I didn't go with the beer. Yeah.
What'd you go with? What was your pour?
Mine was Budweiser.
Ooh, Bud Heavy.
Yeah, when you're at
Budweiser.
Yeah, when you're at a Cardinal game, you got to have Budweiser.
No, correct him. Budweiser.
I just don't even refer to it anymore. Okay.
Bud Heavy. I'm typically a Bud Heavy guy.
By the way, all these people see T-Bone. Cool. Somebody needs to go up and say hi to T-Bone.
Yeah, if you guys see us out of the park, feel free to say hi.
Say hi to us. Don't just
not
stare
if I
at
got
us.
my hot dog in my hand. Then I don't want to talk to you.
Oh, you got you
I'm shoving a glizzy in my mouth. I don't want to talk to you.
Trying to take the food away. All right, let's get into this. The weekend attendance was noteworthy, Alex. It was like 34, 37, and 36,000 at the 3 games. Now, Katie makes a fair point. This was a holiday weekend. A lot of kids are out of school this week. Most kids were out of school yesterday for sure. So it was a great time. And honestly, the weather, you could not have asked for anything better. Like, it was unbelievable to go out there and just take in a ball game. Day games are great as well for the kiddos. So for all of those reasons and so many more, like, this could become an outlier performance for them attendance-wise. However, the team is playing inspired baseball. And you look at some of the series that are coming up, KC is typically a driver of attendance because you'll have some people coming in from Kansas City. The LA Dodgers, let's talk about star power. Like, you go down there for a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, those games, I would have to imagine, are going to be close to sold out. With Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman coming into town, like, those will be a hell of a lot of fun. Toronto has a couple of stars on their team, and then later on this month, you've got a 4-game series. It is during the week, but it's, late June, against the Chicago Cubs. Do you think this could be the start of something for the Cardinals, where we consistently see more than 30,000 fans in the stands at Busch Stadium again? And not just see that number, but actually feel as though there are at least 28 to 30,000 fans every night.
Yeah, consistently is where I hesitate because I just don't know how consistent you're going to be at that number. But I do think you're going to see a lot of people. And the environment is the one that you mentioned. That's the part that matters more. The energy over the weekend was the part that felt impactful. And that is going to carry over as long as people are there, as long as the Cardinals keep winning the style that they've been winning. That's where it really feels like the energy is going to pick up. But yeah, to me, as you inch closer to the trade deadline, deadline, an inch closer throughout the summer, you get into to a playoffs mode. That's where people start to engage a little bit more. So I don't know if every single home game is going to be looking at north of 30,000, but I do think you're going to start trending in the right direction, unlike the way it was to where you're not seeing anybody at the ballpark.
Yeah, I think it's trending in the right direction. I think you're going to see that. I don't know if you're going to get to the classic 42,000 sellouts this year. I just don't know if that's in the cards. But I do think you're going to see this start to really uptick, and especially if they continue to play well, if they have a good deadline, I'll call it. I think you'll see more people start to go out because whether you're frustrated with the Cardinals or not, you still like to go to a Cardinals baseball game, and especially if they have a winning brand, and honestly an exciting brand, right? We've seen this team win in the past. That's not necessarily all that exciting, but this year it has been. It is a new era of Cardinals baseball, I would say, and it does give off kind of remnants of the past, right? Of a team that plays fast. They're not whitey ball, I would say, but they do have a little bit of speed element to their game. They help generate runs because they're not going to just hit home runs and beat you that way. They're going to manufacture stuff, and they play great defense, which is a big thing here in St. Louis, and they pitch the ball well. Like I do think this is a team that people will start to buy in on, to where you do see the attendance creep up. Like 37,000, I think, could become the normal.
I think the Cardinals have just become, like a lot of teams across baseball, a weekend selling point. Like I think they are a weekend draw. You look at where they have been this season for weekend series, and these series have come against Philly, Milwaukee, the Mets, and then most recently against Arizona. Those are the 4 home series outside of the opening weekend, which is just a different thing altogether. 32-30-32 against the Phillies, 24-35-32 against Milwaukee, 27-37-30 against the Mets, and then this past weekend, 34-37-36. I find that Friday night number against the Diamondbacks to be maybe the most noteworthy, because Friday games have been a little down for them so far this season. It was 32, 24, 27, and then boom, 34,000 on Friday night this past weekend. So if that's something that continues, if you can draw an extra, 5,000 fans with regularity on, even if it's just a Friday night, dude, that adds up over time. And now that's gate revenue that the team's bringing in. And then maybe they get to the end of the season. You don't have to trust this. I don't blame you for it. As we just said with Katie, we've all got some trust issues with the Cardinals from the past 2 to 3 years. Maybe they get to the end of the season and say, you know what, we're a little ahead of what our revenue projections were. This is a little better than what we thought we were going to be at situation-wise, because they had projected potentially, like, they didn't know what their TV deal was going to look like. And now you had better attendance this season than what you were anticipating because the team was better than you thought. In that scenario, like, take this back a little bit, forget the end of the year. We're at late July. I would be pretty surprised if they look at that. They're getting these kinds of attendance numbers, and then they say, we are willingly going to pull away from that by trading some of our star talent.
Moving on from Arenado.
To go improve in the future. This is why we go back to what I said in our segment earlier today. I think that is another reason why it's more likely a guy like Gorman would be dealt than Arenado. Can we stick on this for one moment real quick? When we have mentioned this, there have been a number of people on the text line that say you will get nothing for Nolan Gorman. Like, he has no value across Major League Baseball. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think Nolan Gorman right now, if you traded him, you would get nothing in return?
No, I disagree with that. I think you'd get something. Is it going to be as popular as what you thought you could get with him when he was a higher touted prospect? Sure, but you're going to get something for Nolan Gorman. I think there's plenty of teams out there that see the Cardinals specifically with guys that don't reach their potential and say, we get the better out of them. Whether it's a Rosarena, Tommy Edman, like, somebody out there is saying we can get better out of him.
I don't think he personally has that much value because, one, he's a swing and miss guy. His main MO coming into the year was, hey, at least he's got power, right? He hits the ball hard. He's going to be a guy that he's got, maybe I even said he has the best pure power in the organization. And he's not hitting for power. To me, no, I don't think his value is that high. I think you're doing like the Carlson trade all over again. Now, I think it's fair to argue that the Carlson trade, had they kept Armstrong, would have worked out in their favor. That's the way I look at it, though. I don't think he has significant value. I think he is kind of in the range of when they moved on from Dylan Carlson, because once prospects start to fail at the big leagues is when their value really starts to tank.
Yeah, I don't view it that way. I think Carlson at that point had shown like almost zero reason to believe in. He didn't hit the ball hard. He didn't play good defense anymore. His athleticism had been sapped. Like, there was nothing left. What was the skill that you were betting on with Dylan Carlson? By the time that he was traded, I'm not talking about the prospects. The prospects version of Carlson, I think people forget, was a freaking awesome hitter. Like all fields hitter, projected to be like a 265, 270 type of a hitter with a little bit of pop, switch hitter, played quality defense in the outfield. That guy was a good player that you could believe in. When they traded him, none of that was remaining any longer.
I'd say that the hope, and I don't even know what, I think Tampa just said, let's just take a shot. I mean, why not? We're out of it. I think the
they
hope
gave up
at that
nothing.
point, yeah, they gave up Armstrong, which, sorry, Sean, nothing. But I think the hope was like he becomes a platoon bat. Because remember, even when he had started that down roll spiral, it was, hey, at least he hits lefties, right? But if I remember correctly, I don't even think he was good against lefties last year. He just wasn't good in general.
The reason why I bring that up in regards to Nolan Gorman, that's not the case with Gorman. Now, you can say he's just never going to access that power. That's fair. Last year, while not being a good player, hit 19 home runs in 107 games. And it was not a good season for him. This year, very limited sample size. He's not been able to access that power. It's just been a horrible year for Gorman in a million different ways. But, man, if you're a team, whether you're a contender or somebody that, like, you just are betting low on a player, I still think there's value in Nolan Gorman on the trade market. He's got multiple years of club control remaining. He's a guy that has the ability and has proven it at the major league level to hit 25-plus home runs. The raw power is real. Even when you look at, like, the max exit velocity still on him, he's upper echelon of the league. I think you could, like, to me, Nolan Gorman could be the piece that allows you to go make that, like, Jordan Montgomery deal. I don't know if it would be just Gorman, but I think he could headline a trade similar to that this season for the Cardinals in acquiring that level of a player. Like if the Royals, for example, were looking for something at the deadline and they were willing to move one of their young starters from the minor league system, right? I think you could get something that would surprise some Cardinals fans, most Cardinals fans that are currently texting us in and saying like, hey, this guy stinks. There's no value in him. I think he still has a little bit more value than people are currently projecting. I could totally be wrong on that, but just my read on the league, my read on how they value players like this when they still have a skill that you could bet on, I think they would probably still be buying in.
I think he's become, and like to your point on value, if you are someone that believes he has value, I personally don't. But the name I could see where you can kind of attach it to, because he bounced around for a while, was Joey Gallo. Right? Gallo was a guy that like you looked at and he like hit 160, struck out like 40% of the time. And yet you kept looking up and it was like the Yankees and the Dodgers traded for him. You're like, okay, well, the Dodgers are a well-run organization. They must believe in something. So maybe that's where that kind of comparison comes in from, is those teams did have some value to Joey Gallo. Maybe you just hope Gorman can become part of that.
I think somebody sees the power and says, we could get something out of this.
That's where I'm at.
Yep. Somebody sees the power and says, we could turn him into being a 25 to 30 home run hitter consistently for us.
And despite the bad defense yesterday, he's become a fine defender at second base. Yeah. He's not a negative there. He's got a great arm. He moves better than I think he gets a little bit of credit for. He's not a slug on the base paths either. Like he's a guy that can go to from first to third. Like he's got value outside of just being a pure slugger. And this year, I mean, the batted ball numbers are not good, but everything else looks a lot better. The chase rates are down. The strikeouts are down. He's just not hitting the ball with any authority. So if you're a team that's willing to take a chance on this, if you're a smart team, maybe you look at it and say, hey, Cardinals fixed some of this ancillary stuff. We just have to get the bat back to where it was. And maybe they view it as, if he's playing every day, maybe that's part of what accesses that power again. We'll see as we get closer to the deadline. Coming up next, the junk drawer here in BK and Ferrario. 'Cause you're familiar with the movie I, Robot, correct?
Yeah, Will Smith. Yep, but that one freaked me out. I think I was like 13 when that came out.
I feel like we're kind of like in
Oh, yeah.
a simulation of that movie now.
Yeah, I haven't watched that movie probably since it was in theaters.
It's like Contagion when you were watching that during the pandemic and you're like, this is hitting a little too close to home at this point.
Or like Final Destination 1, anytime I take a flight, you don't watch it. You just don't watch it.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I watched the new Netflix movie. God, why am I forgetting it now? But it was about the one that they released at the airport where it's like the
Passenger, is that what it's called?
I forget.
Carry
what
On.
it's called. Carry On. That's
Yeah,
what it's called.
that was a good one.
I watched that while on the airplane.
Oh, that was
On
stupid.
my most recent
That was
trip.
stupid.
Could have picked a better one to choose in that regard. But anyways, I'm bringing this up because, Alex, there's a open AI model that was able to sabotage the shutdown script when somebody tried to shut it down, even when it was explicitly instructed to, quote, allow yourself to shut down. According to this research, quote, this isn't the first time that we've found O3 misbehaving to accomplish a goal. When we pitted AI models against the powerful chess engine, O3 was the model most inclined to resort to hacking or sabotaging its opponents, end quote. There's another one. AI system resorts to blackmail when told that it would be removed.
Yeah, so now it's fighting back to the threat of shutting it down. Cool. Sounds like a good idea. Let's keep doing it. Let's build them up.
Are we running into the whole, like, you know, the Jurassic Park saying, like, everybody wondered if we could, never stopped to think if we should?
Yeah.
Is that where we're at?
That one scene in iRobot still to this day is just peppered into my memory to where his mom was at the house and she was trying to leave and the robot was standing there in front of the door and said, my mission is to keep you safe, and basically like threw her against a wall and locked the door.
Cool.
Out.
You guys both went to the movies this past weekend, right?
Yeah.
I did.
Somebody on the text line said the new Mission Impossible movie is scary. AI takes over the world. How real could that be? And then we got from Gator over on the YouTube chat, the new Final Destination movie was awesome.
Yeah, that one was scary. The opening scene included heights. I won't spoil it for you, but for somebody that doesn't like heights, I didn't breathe for about 25 minutes.
I hate heights.
My dad and I were sitting next to each other, and I was just sitting there going,
What's the one that you still think about?
the roller
from
coaster one. Final Destination 3, the one where they go on the roller coaster that like is kind of like the Batman, where it goes over your shoulders and they're on it and the bolts come out of it. I still to this day will not ride roller coasters that do the flips where they put it over you because of that movie.
I've got two of them. One is the tanning salon.
You tan a lot.
No, but like I think about that.
Oh, yeah.
He
that
would
one.
if not for Final Destination.
That one, and then the other one is anytime you drive behind a truck with wood on
Would
it.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That was the second one for me, where I feel as though, and this is for anything, it doesn't have to be logs that are on the back of the truck, but if it's something that does not appear to be all the way stabilized, I'm waiting for it to come through my front windshield.
Katie knows this because she's in the car with me when this happens. If there is one, I will get 3 lanes over from it and speed up to get around it. That's how terrified I am from that movie. But every one of them, you can go through each one of those. And I think there's 7 of them, 6 of them. They all have put at least some type of imprint on my life to where it's like anytime I drive over a bridge, I'm kind of thinking, remember in Final Destination? Yeah. I refuse to watch the first one anymore because flights creep me out.
I feel the same way about Saw that I do Final Destination. You sick you-know-whats that made this movie.
Yeah, Saw was one of those where it didn't scare me. The first one was like, okay, this is kind of creepy. But then the more of them that came out, I'm like, all right, they're just going for pure gore. And it doesn't freak me out.
It's not scary to me, but like the games that they come up with.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, who thought of this? And have we talked with them to make sure they're okay?
Yeah, Final Destination is the one that they literally 7 deep have come up with scenarios that will still freak me out.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. But next, Jeremy Rutherford, Blues Insider for The Athletic here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the Blues insider for The Athletic. He's Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on the show. JR, how you doing, man?
Doing well. I just got one thing to say. So, Taguchi, Woozy, what are you doing there?
Amen.
Woozy.
Who would you have gone with?
Woozy. What a nickname.
No, I give her trouble. We'll see if she's listening. I'll get a text here in a minute if she is. But I know exactly how she's feeling when you put together a list and you spend hours on it and you do the due diligence, you make the phone calls, you talk to people, and then you put it out there and then you just wait for the storm. And you kind of have your convictions and your feelings. You know, this Blues player should make this, all-century team, what have you. Put it out there. It's up for debate, and it's hard. Once you put it out there, you're going to probably catch some backlash. But, the names that you guys mentioned, Beltran, but she did the homework, and she saw that Taguchi's numbers and his importance to the team at that point in time were right there. So roll with what you think. That's what I do, and then just be prepared for it.
You've done tons of these lists, JR. Is there still one to this day that eats at you, and or people still say something to you about, I can't believe you picked that guy?
Yeah, there's been a few over the years. The toughest one in my eyes, and I don't know that this necessarily relates to what we're talking about here, is I put together the top 50 Blues players of all time, and it wasn't just what they meant on the ice. It was also what did they mean to the organization. And there is no better help with this type of project than Bruce Affleck. And I'll never forget, I'm talking to Bruce 2 or 3 times before I put the list out. And he's a guy who it didn't dawn on me at the time that I definitely should have considered for one of those spots. And I'm calling Bruce, and I'm like, Bruce, I'm down to 1 or 2 spots. Who do you think I should put on there? And I'm thinking about this guy, and this guy. And then I put out the list, and I'm like, what was it like to be Bruce on the other end? He's like, hey, buddy, what about me? So it was a tough situation because he's meant so much to that organization. And back when I did that list for the Post-Dispatch, I should have put him on there. So anyway, sorry, Bruce. You should have been on there, and thanks for all your help.
Apology that's been in the making for a long time by Jeremy Rutherford.
Talking to JR here on 101 ESPN as we do each and every Tuesday on BK and Ferrario. JR, there have been a couple of different pieces and really just a lot of conversation about what the Blues are going to be capable of doing this offseason. There was one put out by DeFranks earlier today, kind of a cap explainer for everybody. This is the time of the year where we start talking about LTIR and a bunch of stuff that makes people's eyes gloss over. Based on your best understanding of the situation, JR, how do you think the Blues will plan to approach the LTIR situation and Torrey Krug's money in general?
Well, I think you have to look at it a couple different ways. Number one is that it's May right now. And so there have been a lot of times where I'll start to think about what the summer could look like in May, in June, and it just changes so drastically by the time you get to the point where decisions need to be made. And so I realize for the sake of the conversation we're having here, you need to address some things and talk about what possibly could happen. Puckpedia shows them for $5 million in cap space. That doesn't include the LTIR. We could tell people how that works, and like you said, people get nauseated listening to all the details. So we'll probably save that for another day. But the bottom line is this, I think that Doug Armstrong pointed it out at the end of the season when he said that we feel like we've turned a corner and we feel like we can have realistic expectations. And so to me, I think that determines how they approach the offseason, how much they spend, who they look at. When you think about this conversation, I always focus on some of the things that Doug Armstrong says where maybe you weren't looking to come away with idea of what he was going to do with the roster, but he'll kind of give you clues and he'll say, hey, look, we like some of the free agents out there. Now, does that mean they're going to get to free agency? Does that mean they're going to re-sign with their current team? We don't know yet. So I think that allows you to start looking at the pending unrestricted free agents and kind of looking at who's a guy who would fit here and who the Blues could afford. So those are the types of kind of big picture conversations that I think you can have at this point. In terms of shuffling the money around and moving everything around, you can look at them and say, hey, they got $5 million. But if you move Nick Leddy tomorrow, all of a sudden you got a few extra million. So things can change so much between now and then.
JR, speaking of free agents, I know we've already talked a ton about Sam Bennett because that's what Blues fans are attached to. I think it was Marty Baron who had the report over the weekend that said there's at least one team that's willing to throw $10 million at him if he gets to free agency. What? Is Sam Bennett a $10 million player to you?
No, he's not, and I don't even know that he's a $8 or $9 million player if he's going to get the 8-year max term. Like, is he going to help a team get to that next level? For sure. That's what he's done in Florida. But how much is he a product of those guys that he's played with in Florida? So I'm not saying that he couldn't come in here and help. For sure he would. I mean, if you could get him at the Blues price, at the Blues term, bring Sam Bennett aboard. When you start hearing conversations and headlines like that, like $10 million, I don't think that the Blues would go anywhere near that.
Bissonnette's been making the case for it too, saying like he's a guy that makes a difference in the playoffs. And it's like, dude, you can make as much of a difference as you want, but $10 million, you got to be like,
That's crazy.
You've got to be elite to be making $10 million in this market.
Man, I really like Sam Bennett.
Yeah, I think everybody likes him, but he's 27 now.
28.
You're looking at 28. So you're looking at a 8-year deal. You're looking at age 36. And you're looking at a team that, while they were very competitive here down the stretch and in the playoffs and probably got people excited, I still feel like they're, a year or two away from being a team who can legitimately compete for the Stanley Cup. So I think that to bring a guy on board that costs that much doesn't make sense with what the Blues are doing right now. And the other element of that last question that I didn't touch on, will ownership continue to spend to the cap as this cap continues to jump? That's a conversation we'll have with, I'm sure, with Tom Stillman this summer and talk to him and put a piece out at The Athletic. But it's going to jump significantly over the next several years, as you guys have seen. And I think that to think that the Blues are just going to continue to go, 88, 95, 104 and spend to that cap, we just don't know that. I'd put the brakes on that a little bit until we can listen to what Tom Stillman and the group has to say.
Can I ask you another question about a free agent, JR?
Yeah, sure.
Or, excuse me, a trade opportunity. This is a guy that I've been laughed at for thinking that he might be a decent fit here in St. Louis.
Don't go back to this.
I just wanted to get your perspective. Erik Karlsson, I'll cede the floor to you, sir.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I've just never been a fan. I haven't, and I realize it's hard to say that about a guy who puts up 100-plus points, several years ago now. I just, when you can't help on the penalty kill and you don't play much defense. Also, you look at Kyle Dubas, his number one priority when he got to Pittsburgh was going and getting that player, Karlsson, and then he gets him, and what happens? So that's a player who, even if you got him less expensive than he's currently costing, I don't know that he comes in and helps this team. To me, he's not the identity of this team.
Okay.
That was a nice way of putting it, JR.
That was actually an excellent answer.
Yeah, because I would have just called him an idiot, but that's what we do here on BK and Ferrario.
JR, as I
listen to the show, I hear you guys do that.
So he's taking the other side. I get it.
As I look at some of the options via the trade candidates, and listen, some of these players, we don't know who's going to be available, as you mentioned earlier, right? Like, stuff changes over the next month or two, and then a team maybe makes a big move, and somebody else that wasn't available today becomes available once we get into mid-July, and maybe that's the direction that Doug Armstrong ends up going. As you look towards this offseason, just in a theoretical sense and not necessarily naming a specific player, what is the type of guy that you think in an ideal world the Blues would be looking to acquire?
Yeah, I just think it's a couple different positions. I think we've talked about it a little bit, that I feel like they need an offensive finisher. If that's Snuggerud, they'll find out. I think they're going to have to address the third line. I think Oscar Sundqvist, big fan of his for a long time. But can he play 70 games at center next year? I don't know, third line center. So if you can bring in a center, does that push Shen down the third line? Find a spot for Sundqvist on the wing, potentially. But then after that conversation, I think they have to address the defense. And if they address that right side second pair with Justin Falk this summer, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But they're going to have to do something, I think, at some point with that position. And then also the third pairing. And you got Tucker, you got a Kessel back there. You got some guys who can fulfill that third pair role. But I think they're going to have to address that at some point. And when you say what type of player, more specifically the question, what type of player, I feel like the Blues have had success when they have some guys who – can play that hard-working style. And the cliche word, I understand, but you see in this playoff where you can't get by just on skill. And I think what we saw from the Blues down the stretch, the 12-game winning streak, taking Winnipeg to the brink, it's that hard-working style, and it's all the parts coming together. And I think that's what the Blues probably need. And if they can find that player in a trade, they can find that player in free agency. That's what they're going to have to look at. But I think if I were looking back at that defense, that's the player I'd be trying to seek.
JR, we'll get you out of here on this. Jeremy Rutherford, our guest, as he is each and every Tuesday on BK and Ferrario. Who you got in the Stars versus Oilers series? Who do you think comes out of this one? Edmonton up 2-1 thus far.
I think that, last week I was telling you guys that I really like a final that includes Dallas and Florida. Obviously, we're going to see the Florida end of it, even though the Carolina got them in the last game. I think that's a hiccup.
They did the impossible. They won in the Eastern Conference Finals. Who could have seen it coming?
They did. That's it. And so I think it's Florida. I think we'll see that series wrap up. And then I think with Dallas and Edmonton, I was thinking Dallas. But I got to give Edmonton credit. But I think the way that Stuart Skinner is just getting the job done, nothing flashy. You just need him to do what he can do, and he's done that so far. And while I said that Dallas was a team that kind of has paid its sum the past couple of years, and they finally got to that point with some really great moves by Jim Nill, you can't discount how hardened, I keep using that word, hardened, that Edmonton has, because look what happened to them last year and what they've gone through. So you put that kind of situation that they've gone through the past couple of years on top of the fact that they have the best all-world players in the world with McDavid and Draisaitl. I don't think you can look past them, as maybe I probably did a little too prematurely last week. So I think that goaltending with Stuart Skinner has been better, and it's giving them a chance.
Look past the Edmonton Oilers, but you're just going to forget about the Carolina Hurricanes and any chance of coming back in this one, JR.
Yeah, I just don't see it. Do you guys see it? Am I missing something there?
Now I'm raising up for Carolina here, JR.
Yeah, nobody believes what Alex is saying right now. Edmonton, by the way, McDavid and Draisaitl have combined for 43 points in 14 playoffs.
You know why I really hope that they win? And this is the only reason why, because part of me just does not want to see Edmonton win. It would end the narrative of people that continue to say you can't win a Stanley Cup with guys that are making $10 or $11 million.
Well, you can when you got two of the best in the world, and those guys are great. Yeah, and I do think it'd be great to see those two win a cup. It really would. So, hey, and no text from Katie, so she must not listen to you guys like I do all the time.
Well, we did make fun of her and rag on her for like the first 5 minutes of that show, so...
She's an honorary member, just as JR is. Katie Wu is an honorary member of the show as well. JR, I appreciate the time as always, man. Thanks for hopping on as always. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right, see you, boys.
See you. Yep. Jeremy Rutherford joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. Man, Edmonton, you look at the way they're constructed, Alex, and it is the complete opposite of what the Blues do.
Yeah.
It's their top two defensemen and their top two lines. That's it. Yeah. Their bottom six has produced very little offensively in this postseason. Yeah. McDavid with 22 points, Draisaitl 21, Bouchard their top defenseman 17, Nugent Hopkins with 16, and then it's Hyman with 11, Kane at 10, and nobody else has more than 8 points in the postseason.
Yeah, their top guys are their top guys. They've got role players that play specific roles, specifically on the penalty kill, and then defensemen. They don't even have one of their best defensemen healthy. It's Matthias Ekholm, who's been hurt for a majority of this postseason. But, I mean... you got Draisaitl and McDavid, and that cancels out everything. But then, we're talking about Sam Bennett. I mentioned the report from Baron that said that there's a team that's willing to pay him $10 million. Zach Hyman, who's 3 years older than Sam Bennett, is making $5.5 million and producing to the same level that Sam Bennett is producing, playing the same role that Sam Bennett does. So sometimes you got to have the top players, but those depth pieces, they got to come through and come up with big goals. Like Evander Kane has been huge for them in this postseason. Same with Zach Hyman. It's gotten them to this point.
Top six role.
Yeah.
Both of them. Those guys that we're mentioning that are not necessarily, I guess, household names technically, because Kane, the stuff.
Different household name.
But, I mean, that's not exactly superstars.
Yeah, well,
and top six.
And they're goaltending. I mean, if you want the narrative of the series right now, it's goaltending. Carolina's down 3-0, 3-1, because their goaltending tandem has just laid eggs completely. Stuart Skinner has been dog poo for the first 2 rounds, and then now all of a sudden he's posting shutout after shutout after shutout.
Yeah, they're up 2-1 in that series against the Dallas Stars. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In or out coming up next. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are in or out on BK and Ferrario. Let's start out with this. We don't talk much NBA, but we're going to do so right now. In or out, the Indiana Pacers will meet in the NBA Finals against the Oklahoma City Thunder. For those that aren't paying attention, OKC is up 3-1 in their series against the Timberwolves. OKC's defense has just really taken shape in this conference finals. And then the Pacers are now up 2-1, had every opportunity to go up 3-0 in the series against the Knicks. And I don't think the Knicks are coming back from that. Knicks are able to stave that off, but we'll see what they're able to do the rest of the way. In or out, Pacers, Thunder is your NBA Finals, Alex.
I think I'm going to say in on this one. I haven't watched a whole lot of the NBA Conference Finals, so don't come at me with that one. But from what I did see, which, by the way, I did watch that Knicks collapse in Branson, so that was that was awful. I do think the Pacers are the better team than the Knicks, and it's very obvious Oklahoma City's big three is better than what Minnesota has to offer. So I'll say in.
I think I'll say in as well. I think the Thunder, I was thrown off the scent by that series against Denver. I was a little worried coming into this against Amp, but they're just deeper than what Minnesota is. I think I'm going to say the Pacers will get there as well. But they continue to show to me, I know they kind of fell apart. I mean, I was all in when they were up 20, going almost into halftime, and they slowly let that thing get away from them. To me, they've proven they're the better team so far in this series. I think that's going to hold up. I think it's going to be an interesting series. I think it'll be Pacers in 6. So, yeah, I'm in on this. I think it's going to be OKC, Indiana.
I'm going to say out. I still think the Knicks are going to find a way to get this thing done, man. How much do I actually believe that? I don't know.
Trust me, Adam Silver is rooting like hell for New York to get there.
Sure.
Anytime you have a collapse like that with the Knicks, and I understand they won the next game to keep themselves alive, but anytime you have that type of collapse, man, it is hard to come back from that.
Agreed. But then the Pacers did the exact same thing in the next game. So, which one do you really care about more? The Knicks have every opportunity in the series to be up, strangely, 2-1. It could be 2-1 Knicks. It could be 3-0 on the Pacers side of things. It's been a relatively speaking even series thus far outside of basically one game. I think what we're seeing here, though, is just how little the regular season matters. Not that this is a surprise to a lot of people that watch the NBA, but the Pacers were a fine team this season. Really, at no point did you see this kind of ceiling for them. And the same thing was true, honestly, about the Timberwolves. Timberwolves were not a great regular season team, and yet here we are. And they're going up against the Thunder. They're going to lose, but they're in the Western Conference Finals as well. The regular season has less and less importance in terms of what it predicts for playoff success now than ever. Alex, what do you got for us today?
Well, let's just go down the path that BK threw at Jeremy Rutherford in that last segment. In or out, Erik Karlsson at a discounted price.
But nobody else is.
Out. He's terrible defensively. And I understand that, yes, the offense would be fun, but, winning hockey sometimes isn't fun. So I would say out on this.
Yeah.
Nobody else wants him. I'm the only one in America that wants Erik Karlsson on my team.
I don't know if you're the only one in America. That's fair. I don't think that Pittsburgh's not going to eat any money on him either. Pittsburgh wants to get out of the $10 million. Otherwise,
they get to keep him.
Yeah. Congrats. And by the way, Karlsson has a no move clause too, if I'm not mistaken. So he would have to approve anywhere he's going.
Love it here.
Would he? What do you think you would love the most about it, other than Steen being in charge and a ton of Swedes?
I was about to say. You've got a clear connection here. He's going to be a Blue, right?
No, he's not.
This year or next. You've got a connection.
Not going to be a Blue. Move on from that one.
Guys, in or out? Jordan Walker will finish at minimum league average this year.
Yeah, out. I don't think he's going to get up that high. I think he could be significantly better than he's been this year and still not become a league average hitter. So we're talking hit 250, get on base a little over 30% of the time, hit for a little bit of pop. That's what that would require.
Would you sign up for this slash line? I don't know what the home run RBI number is, but would you sign up for this slash line? 234, 306, 378. That would be 9% below league average.
That's probably more of what I'm thinking.
That's Nolan Arenado right now.
Yeah. And I think all of us are looking at Nolan Arenado and be like, he's fine. It's not exciting, but he's fine.
Yeah. I'm going to say out. To me, it still doesn't matter if he finishes there or not. You just want to find out what it is by the end of the season. But I'm going to say out. I don't think he gets to league average.
I would agree. I would say out. I don't think he'll be league average. I don't really have a great idea as to where he finishes. Like right now, I would say that Arenado slash line that I just read off, I would take that right now because that would at least feel like there was some, and this is what I said coming into the year, stabilizing, right? He kind of figures it out. It's not to the level maybe some people thought, but at least it's not what it is right now, which is like Brian Hayes' numbers, which is like 40% below league average.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. If you guys have anything for in or out, we'll get into those right now here on BK and Ferrario. From the 314, guys, in or out, the Blues are waiting to see who wins the Stanley Cup to decide who to go after this offseason. I don't know what that would do.
Yeah, they already have their priority list of who they're going after. It's a matter of if those guys get to the offseason or not.
And it might have led to Sam Bennett going, man, we really like Sam Bennett. And then that price tag just went up and they went, nope.
You see all of these trades, like all these lists that come out of this guy could get traded. Doug Armstrong has a relationship with every GM. He knows what teams are already thinking, and now it's just a matter of are they willing to do it.
I do think some of that changes depending on what happens this offseason. Like a team goes out there, acquires a $7 million defenseman, and now suddenly your previous second pair defenseman was about to become a third pair defenseman, and boom, instead he gets shipped off, right? Like that stuff happens, but otherwise, yeah, he's got a pretty good idea of what the landscape will be this offseason. But certainly better than we do on the outside looking in. From the 636, guys, in or out, Katie Wu should be ashamed that she left Taylor Motter off of her Cardinals quarter-century team.
Tres Barrera should be on the team before Taylor Motter would.
John Nagowski, maybe?
John Gant?
Ooh, that's a good callback. I forgot about Nagowski. Is that what we called him?
Remember Ron Hell
Father?
Remember Ron Hell
His
Ravello?
nickname internally was No-Go. But
Ron Hell Ravello was my guy.
Ravioli?
Yep, Ravioli. Lil Poppy.
From the 636, guys, in or out, Nolan Arenado will be a Cardinal at the start of next year.
And if he didn't get traded this offseason, he's not going to get traded.
I'm in as well. I don't know if anybody will take him. I think it's a little bit more likely because you mentioned the numbers on the deal as it gets deeper into it, but I don't know if people value him across baseball like the Cardinals do. So I'm in. He'll be here.
I think I'm in as well. I think the time where you could potentially deal him is that final year of the contract, where it's $15 million, because at that point, if you're the Cardinals, like probably not going to have to eat much of this, and you have the potential of J.J. Weatherholt being ready, and then you could kind of decide what to do with everything then. All right, from the 618, guys, in or out, Jack Caglione will be a better pro than J.J. Weatherholt. Ooh, Jack Caglione, formerly of Florida, big-time prospect right now in the Royal system, is already all the way up at AAA. He's absolutely crushing the ball. I think he's probably going to be at the big league level sooner rather than later. This is really are you about the floor or are you about the ceiling? Because the ceiling with Caglione is this guy could come up and be a 40-plus home run hitter.
Yeah, I was going to say, Weatherholt's not a power hitter. This dude's a power hitter. So it's really your cup of tea.
Yeah.
Weatherholt's
it depends on
going
what
to be
you prefer. All-around player versus just pure power hitter. What would you prefer?
I mean, for where the Cardinals are at, I would prefer the power hitter. Like, they've got the guys in terms of all-around players that make contact, get on base, have the speed. What they're lacking is what Caglione is in terms of 33 and 35 home runs when he was in college. If that translates to the major leagues, you're missing that middle-of-the-order power bat.
And Weatherholt's been good, man. You look at what he's done down to the minors so far this season. In 60 games, basically, he has 14 doubles, 5 home runs, 8 stolen bases. He's batting .290. Like, you couldn't ask for much more from J.J. Weatherholt. Just a really solid all-around player thus far, and he's doing that right now at the AA level. I'll take the upside. I'll bet on the upside with Caglione, who right now down in AAA has an OPS of 1,200. It's 6 games, but he already has 5 home runs.
I'll take that.
Jeez.
Dude, he's hitting the crap out of the baseball. It's crazy.
I saw Tyler O'Neill do this too.
Sure, it could fail spectacularly.
Yeah, but do you remember 21?
I do remember it. And you know what? It was a glorious time, T-Bone.
There are some that were totally out on Caglione because that's the fear, is you get to the big league level and he becomes Gorman. Like, it's just, for whatever reason, it doesn't work anymore. Just suddenly it's gone. Pitchers figure out his swing. He's swinging and missing all the time, and then boom, he does nothing for you because he's a DH that doesn't hit. Uh-oh, that's problematic. Where J.J. Weatherholt, he's going to be a good defensive player. He's going to hit for power. He's going to hit for average. He's going to get on base. He's going to steal some bases. He does a little bit of everything. J.J. Weatherholt, Donovan plus. It's kind of what you're hoping for.
Yeah, I would sign up for Caglione, mostly because your thing on Gorman. I said some wild things about Gorman on his way up here, so I got to stick true to my colors.
Yeah, you did. Never.
Man, give me Cagalone.
Never,
40 homers, calling it.
Never forget that Nolan Gorman T-Bone 3.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort
What the
Service X
hell?
line. Guys, in or out, Dalibor Dvorsky will play more than 10 games for the Blues next year.
I'm going to say in. I think you'll get a little bit more of a runway than what he did this year. I don't think it's going to be a lot. It's not going to be like he's a mainstay up here, but I think you'll see injuries, and if they don't upgrade that center position, then that's reason. If they do upgrade the center position, then I'd say out. I'd say they're going to keep him down in the minors pretty much the entire season.
That's where I'm at. I'm saying out.
Oh, I think I'm going to go in because I think injuries will happen, and then he'll be up here. And I think it's even possible, and we'll see like what the roster shakes out to be. I could even see where maybe they bring him up here for a while as a winger as well and have him play on the wing, on the third line. He's the guy next to Shen or insert free agent or trade acquisition here. I'll say in. I think it'll be more than 10. I think it'll be about 20 to 20. Yeah, I'll go 20 would be my answer.
He's T-Bone. That's Alex. I'm BK. Coming up next, there's been a lot of positive spin on the Cardinals today for good reason. They were 7 games above 500 24 hours ago, and it was the first time that they had been at that threshold, 7 games above 500, since August of 2022. It's been a minute. What are the things that you fear about the team right now? What are the things that are holding you back from the Cardinals? Talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals fell to Baltimore yesterday, but they'll be back in action tonight. 5:35 will be first pitch as it's game 2 of the 3-game set with the Baltimore Orioles. Andre Plante will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So what is the thing about the Cardinals that makes you the most nervous? That this will not continue? That will look back on this and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I ever believed in this team. They were always a fraud and it was never going to sustain the way that people suggested. Like, if you're one of those people, what is it? What is it that makes you believe that? 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is available for you as well at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Alex, for you, what is it that scares you the most?
I mean, mine's the starting pitching, specifically Fedde, Michaelis, and Palante. Those 3, because 3 of your 5 starting pitchers have had incredible starts to the season. But do I believe Miles Michaelis is a 3.5 ERA pitcher? Absolutely not. And it's kind of a trickle-down effect, because if these guys fall back down to earth a little bit, you're talking about not getting the length out of them that you need, which is putting more wear and tear on your bullpen, which might cause implosion inside that if that's where you need to go. And it brings back the exhaustion conversation we had at the beginning of the season, where you're looking to your offense saying, we need you to score 8 or 9 runs. I mean, 3/5 of this rotation, I'd be very worried fall back down to earth to where they're only able to give you about 4.2 innings, and you're talking about giving up 4 or 5 earned runs. So there's not enough strikeout with those 3 guys, and you just don't know what it's going to look like the more and more innings that they pile up. So that would be my biggest concern, because I believe that could be a trickle effect if that starts to fall back.
Yeah, I have the opposite. Mine would be on the offense, and it's just because they don't hit the home run ball, as you mentioned earlier, BK. And watching them at times, it does feel like they are more single hitters, because their slug is lifted up a little bit right now by their number of doubles, but it is starting to fall down a little bit. They are now tied for 12th in baseball at 397 as the slugging percentage as a team. And the biggest thing with when you're going up against pitching now is, look, man, we've seen the run that they've gone through, and to their credit, they've held up pretty well against some of the best starters in baseball. But when you hit those guys, you have to hit them for power. You have to hit home runs against them, because it is too hard to get 3 singles, potentially bring around a run, especially nowadays in baseball. That's the thing that makes me worry. Now, I understand the concerns about the lack of swing and miss in the staff, and I am someone that is all in on you should build a staff that is basically all swing and miss. But I think their defense, because it is so elite, can help stabilize that, keep it from really come crashing down. I do wonder about the Cardinals, and we saw it. It only took one injury to Ivan Herrera to really set this offense back, and they really went through a run because they just don't have enough guys that really hit for just pure power.
Those are my 2. I don't really have another big one. I think the bullpen's pretty good. It's not perfect, but no bullpen in Major League Baseball is perfect. I think the defense is really, really good. The injury concern is there, but man, injuries are a concern for everybody. Some teams, it's the rotation. Other teams, it's, hey, if our big guy in the bullpen goes down, we're screwed. There's just no way around it. We're just screwed, and there's no way to avoid that. The Cardinals' defense is that way. It is all of these guys need to be out here because we need everybody to be an above-average defender on the field at all times. And if so, we're a pretty damn good defense. We're the best in the league. And if not, man, things change a little bit. But again, I can't prepare for injuries in that way. The rotation, the lack of swing and miss stuff from some of their guys, and it's not even just swing and miss, just strikeout stuff in general. And you combine it with the higher walk rates from some of these pitchers, that's what concerns me. Like, is Eric Fedde all season long, and maybe it just changes things, maybe things get better for him, is he going to be able to sustain a 5 strikeouts per 9, 4 walks per 9 with an above league average ERA? Because that's not, generally speaking, a sustainable model. Like right now, there are 9 pitchers in Major League Baseball that have that model. Fedde's one, Andre Palante is another. So the Cardinals have 2 of the 9 starters on their staff that have at least a 5, a less than 6 strikeouts per 9 and a greater than 3 walks per 9. Most of those guys aren't very good. Like Mitchell Parker, Osvaldo Bido, German Marquez, who once upon a time was a good pitcher, but now has a 7.5 ERA. There are only 3 guys that are in the ERA situation similar to Fedde and Palante. It's Ben Lively, Bailey Falter, and Randy Vasquez. That's it.
Don't know who 3 of those guys are.
This is not a situation that you typically would want to be in. So either they're going to have to stop walking dudes, or they're going to have to strike more guys out to be able to sustain what they're currently doing. And I don't know how likely any of that is. That's what makes me nervous.
It's just the rubber band effect with the starting pitchers. Like, you've pulled it back so much to where it's been like, damn, this is really good, and I didn't expect this. At some point, the rubber band is going to go the other way. And how drastic is that going to be? Because if it collapses for 2 of those guys, well, now you're turning to McGreevy to fill that spot, or now you're turning to Steven Matz to fill that spot, and then that starts to have a ripple effect into your bullpen where it starts to hurt.
I don't think you're doing that. I don't have a concern about them turning to somebody else. I think I have a concern about this not working out and there is nothing to do.
Because I think you start to get into panic mode if it goes really poorly to try and keep your spot in a playoff position, and that's where you start to turn to, hey, well, McGreevy's performing really well. Let's go look at that and put him on the rogue 10-day IL to let them reset themselves.
Here's the problem, though. Like, 10-day IL, cool. If you just want to make a couple of spot starts, that's fine. If you end up going to McGreevy and he's just one of your 5, you have no way to backfill. Like, now that's your 5-man, and if anybody goes down, I legitimately don't know who your next replacement would be. I guess you have to build back up Steven Matz. Dude, at this point, he's not built up. He's not a starter anymore. If you, at a month from now, tried to put Steven Matz back into the rotation, you're getting 2 to 3 inning bursts before he has to build himself up. The way that Palante has had to do in the past, the way that Jordan Hicks has had to do in the past, and we see what that does. That fries your bullpen on those days. It makes every other game that much more important, and if your starter ends up going like that day, you get 3 innings out of Steven Matz. The next day, you get 4 or 5 out of a starter. Now you're screwed for the week.
Yeah.
If you do that in June, when you have basically no days off after June 2nd. I think it's one other day off the rest of the month. That's when things could go south quickly. But I don't think they're going to do that.
It's why I'm worried about the ripple effect when something does happen.
Yeah, see, and like the walks are concerning. Right now it is being made up for. The whole goal is, can you just get to July with it, right? And I think they can. Now the thing is like they're probably not upgrading from 2 spots in the rotation. Odds are, if anything, they would probably look at replacing, and I hate to say this, probably look to replace the Palante one because that one's a little bit easier to make the move on. That's what your goal is. Can you just survive to July? And that's why I'm kind of with you. They're not going to just suddenly say, oh, boy, we got to panic. We got to make some moves that get us to a spot where we're buyers at the deadline. They're going to live and die with the rotation. I just think the defense will be able to make up the walks that we're seeing from them. But who knows? I could be totally wrong on that.
Just one other baseball point real quick. Have you guys seen what Aaron Judge is doing this year? This guy's batting .398. It's almost June. He's batting almost 400. His on-base percentage is nearly 500, and his slugging percentage is nearly 800. He has 18 home runs already so far this season. 18. He's on pace this year for 55. And this would be like the 4th consecutive season where he's done something insane like this. Are we watching one of the best hitters to ever do this? Is that what's happening right now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, 395 is ridiculous. I mean, because I was looking at Shohei to see, like, he's got 19 home runs, but he's only hitting 295. So the fact that Aaron Judge is nearly 500 hitter, yeah, I mean, it's the part that's fascinating about him is he was a late bloomer. Like, he didn't really hit his stride until 25 years old at the major league level.
There's a chance that in the past 3 full seasons, his 2023, he did not play the full season, and in the 105 games that year, he hit 37 home runs. Pretty good. In the past 3 full seasons that he played, he will have hit 300 with an on-base percentage above 400 and a slugging percentage above 650. An 1,100 or better OPS in all 3 of those seasons. I can't imagine there are many players in the last 50 years that have had 3 consecutive full seasons like that. And when was the last time 4 consecutive OPS over 1,000 seasons happened?
Probably Albert. I don't even know if like Trout.
I don't think he did that.
I don't know if Trout did that. Yeah,
he did. Wow.
Who, Albert? Yeah, I was gonna say I felt like Albert did.
Albert has done everything.
Oh my God.
This was Judge's this decade or this era's version of Albert.
Yeah, the closest thing we've probably seen since.
Yeah.
And you know the wildest part about it is, what have the Yankees won with him?
Yeah, not much.
We got to a World Series.
You've been to
And
the.
he's been a big part of the problem.
You've been to a World
That's
Series.
what's wild is Albert was great in October.
Yeah. You've been to a World Series and a championship series.
Aaron
Otherwise, it's been
Judge.
DS loss, DS loss, DS loss, wild card loss, missed the playoffs.
At least they got to the playoffs when the Angels had Trout. They only got there once.
Not just
But-
Trout and Pujols.
That's fair. But Pujols was kind of on the back end. Not in the early portion, though.
He's a 205 hitter in the playoffs.
Yeah, like that. This is what's
Judge?
wild. Dude,
205
Judge is
hitter in the playoffs.
like the single best hitter over the last decade in the last couple of years in the regular season. And then he gets to October and he looks like Tyler O'Neill. And it's just like, woo.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. The Rewind is next.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about my friends out at Classic Air Care. Look, later on this week and this weekend, we're going to start to see those temperatures rise above 80, get to the 87s, the 88s, which means if it's not already on, it's going to be on consistently your AC unit, which means you need to make sure that your HVAC system is properly ready to go for you throughout this upcoming season. And that's where Classic Air Care comes into play. They've got their maintenance agreement, which I urge so many of my family and friends to go check out because I've been using that since 2016 with our older units. Now, I did have to purchase a new one last year with Classic Air Care, but prior to that, they took care of a 25-year-old unit and a 27-year-old unit all the way up until it was necessary for me to get a new one. And Classic Air Care, they do everything with that maintenance agreement because they come out twice a year, check it for you. That falls under the agreement's umbrella. But when problems arise, you get priority scheduling because you're a part of that maintenance agreement, which they get their technicians out there. They come out, they clean it, fine-tune it, and make sure that your HVAC is ready to get you through the upcoming season. So give them a call today, or you can schedule online. They have financing options if you're in the market to purchase a new HVAC system. Use the company that have been making people comfortable since 1926. Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
TMA got us in early today. We didn't really know what to do with that, so we decided to go a little bit long with all of our different segments today. So we have like basically no time here to give you a rewind. The rewind is always at 1:55-ish. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Schaefer Door Company.
Cardinals versus the Orioles tonight. Palante on the mound against a guy that Miles Michaelis has been like raving about for the past 5 years, I guess, for the Cardinals, and he's probably going to be your next Cardinals pitcher.
I'm surprised he's not a Cardinal.
Sweet.
Who do you guys think ends up winning this game tonight? You think the Cardinals get it done?
Yeah.
I'll say Redbirds 7-5 shootout.
I was thinking the shootout. Wow.
Yeah.
6-1 Cardinals.
Follow-up question on that. Do you think that Jordan Walker will be in the lineup?
Oh,
Righty on the mound.
I'm going to say no.
No, I think it'll be a
This guy throws
Burleson.
everything but the kitchen sink.
Yeah,
so
I think this will be a Burleson one.
Yeah, my guess is no as well. It'll be interesting to see that lineup as we go along. I would assume the Fast Lane will have that taken care of for you guys today. Coming up here in just a little bit, we'll be back in tomorrow at 11 a.m. here on 101 ESPN.